All right, we're live. I figured I would just hit the button and not warn anybody. So welcome to the I Tap That Cigar Show. I'm your host, Kevin from Cigar Prop, and I'm coming to you live from sunny Gulf Coast of Florida. Joining me, as always, from South Carolina, my co-host, Kerr Viajante of Stogie Road Cigars. Joining us, Gordon Blair of, we'll get into what he does later on. What's going on, guys?
Not much, man. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Fucking Monday with a capital M, dude. Today's a Monday.
You got a case of the Mondays. I think someone said that to me. I'd beat the shit out of my whatever that.
You know what?
I got a case of the Monday.
Using those lines now, people are like, what? What?
Oh, yeah.
You know, and then Herbie Hancock. I know this one. And then they're like, what are you talking about? Now I look like the fool, you know? Like,
oh, yeah. And then nowadays, like I said, I have a hard time like saying like my favorite line, like being my buddy, and someone will say something about being under pressure. Like, what do you know about being under pressure? And I'll be like, well, I have kissed a man, you know. And then nowadays it's just like, so, and it's like, no, it's a movie line.
Yeah, you got to be. It's a dangerous world now, man.
Can't.
Oh my God!
And then you got to watch what you say. What lines you want to quote? Because
I know so many. Can you imagine half the movies when we were all grown? Gordon, how old are you?
39, April 5, 1985.
Okay. So you're right. You know, you're right there with us. You know, more me. Yeah, more me than Kerr. But
where's that? I appreciate you trying to drag
the wheelhouse, right?
Into that wheelhouse.
Yeah. It's on the same car, you know. It's
maybe the beginning and the end of the generation. Still the generation.
I got my AARP card here or whatever.
Well, at least you're saving then.
That's it. You're the new tire on the '88 Volvo. That's
I am. Listen, 55 is. I'm gonna be 55 this year.
Man,
it's a ways away.
So we're all about 10 years apart, and I don't know how old I am. 46, something like that. I don't know. Yeah, that's Jessica. I'm not good at math. Let's get right into our I need a cigar. So let's get into our first segment here, our only segment. First of all, everybody, welcome back. It's the I Tap That Cigar Show, the first one of 2025.
Yeah. So you want to jump right into CigarMedics humidimeter? Cut and light?
The cut and light.
Is that what you want to do? Because with the CigarMedics humidimeter, you will always...
I guess it's important, huh?
Dude,
look at that. We are I think the first guest we've ever had that's had one.
And you know the importance with CigarMedics humidimeter. You always know when to hold them, and you'll always know when to smoke them. So, Kev, what are you smoking this evening? And where are you sitting at there, Slick?
I am sitting at 59%, and I am smoking the Hooligan from a little company called Drifter Cigar Company.
Nice.
When you say little, you're not lying. Little.
Yeah. I'm there. Trash Panda cigar. I mean, it's you at least you have two cigars. I mean, well, I think you have three. I only have two.
Well, I mean, there's actually a lot in the pipeline. It's a tough business, man, to pick one.
Yeah, Kerr's the big dog here. He's got like 9 cigars.
I'm the
catalog.
It's still though. I mean, it's small it's a carry that covers a very wide classification of companies. I'm smoking this bad boy here. Was this the SMR?
The SMR.
SMR.
There you go. This is
and Gordon, what are you smoking tonight?
So we're going with a no band tonight. Our CigarMedics is coming in at 74.
I got questions about
74, 64. I may be dumb, but I'm not stupid.
Yeah,
it's all right. At least you can read numbers.
Well, occasionally. And this is a no band. Well, I mean, I know what it is.
I got questions about that cigar.
This one?
Yes, I do.
Well,
we're gonna get into it.
We're gonna get into that later. We'll get into that.
I got questions immediately, Kev. Just give me a fucking. I'm just saying, hey, buddy, Gord. Hey, Gordo. Hey, Gord.
Yeah,
man.
What's that? Quaker Motorola? You got that Quaker State, Gord. Hey, Gord.
G Money, Gordo, Gordy. Those are
1%.
Okay.
We're gonna
Kerr, you're looking trim, Kerr. You lost some weight since last Monday since I've seen you.
I have.
You have can you are you
a pound?
You gonna tell everybody your secret, or is it you gonna keep that on the in the pocket?
No, I mean, listen, no, I've been dieting. I've been doing the fasting. You know.
Yeah.
That's really important, and I think since October. I think I lost about 30 pounds.
Wow.
I'm down 30
Good job,
pounds.
man.
So not since Monday, right? But since October, definitely. And I'll tell you, really was a motivator besides the fact that being a fat bastard doesn't freaking go well. And I'm still going. I still got another, I think for me, another 30 pounds, 35 pounds ago.
Okay. So 60,
But
65 total, huh? That's what you're aiming?
Yeah. I got a larger frame, so I can hold a lot of weight, man. It's amazing. It's like I feel like I've shed like a third grader in weight, and I'm like I still got another freaking classmate to go. I got but
my dad growing up was always my dad was 6'1", 6'2", always like 280, 290, like construction. He was always a big dude. He never fat, but he had a giant frame. So to be
mine was all up front. Like I had a lot up in here, and also in my legs and my thighs and my ass.
Yeah,
but it was all in the stomach here, and it really kind of was eye-opening. Where I'm like, okay, I got a closet full of clothing. Like I don't need to go clothing shopping. I just need to stop being fat. And then if I stop being fat, then I will have a full wardrobe. And it's amazing, just even with the 30 some pounds that I've lost, how like 80% of my clothing fits now.
What's going on, guys, at the Tooth and Bear?
Oh my boys.
I was in the same boat. It's actually nice. I've been buying more medium shirts. I haven't bought a mediums in quite a few years. So
medium.
He's a medium. Kevin's medium.
Yeah.
So Kevin's tall. So his weight doesn't look right. He's tall.
Yeah.
So
I'm really tall. So
yeah, that's my case too. I got a weird weight cycle. I mean, while we're sitting here talking about being fatsos, my wife and I, we own a lawn care company here in Colorado Springs, and we work really hard during the good months of the year, and then we basically take the winters off. So at the end of October, November, it's like, okay, cool. I get to a little R&R, a little relaxation, and then I'm like, oh, well, my wearing sweatpants every day. This shit catches up real quick. So now
you got a lawn care company it's like the name of an English bar, Thistle and Wood. As you're driving down the road, Thistle and Wood, let's go have a beer there.
I got to be honest, man. So I am Scottish. I'm 25% Scottish, proudly. That being said, when you're starting a brand or a company of anything, right, you need a name, right?
Yeah.
So sitting around and thinking about what am I going to call this lawn care company? Grass cuts, we cuts, every name you can think of, it's taken. It's taken, oddly enough. So I'm like, you know what, 30, 40 names, all got the name through it. And I'm literally sitting here in the wintertime about 5 years ago, and I'm looking out the street signs, and I'm like, that's the street I live on. So I took the name Thistle and Wood. I live on Thistlewood. So
okay.
Now that I've dropped my GPS coordinates for the world to know.
See, I live on Myrtlewood, so there we go.
Mm-hmm.
And Kerr lives behind some woods, so it's another or there are woods behind him anyway.
There is a wooded area.
Well, better than a van down by the river.
We got a little creek though. We got a little creek, so we think maybe put the van down by that creek.
That's it. See, that's how you can tell Kerr never grew up in the South, because it'd be crick. He's got
crick.
Crick. Yep. My dad will still say crick.
We used to call, listen, don't keep specify those words to certain areas, because back in Pennsylvania, where I'm from, it was a crick.
Sure.
Okay, so my dad's from Ohio, so crick. So yes, you're right.
It was a crick. It was always like there was a big event every year, and actually there's a brewery now named after it, Snitz. And every year my buddies would go camping at Snitz Creek.
Yeah.
It's like, that's creek.
Well, Michigan's got their pop and soda dilemma. I've been well versed of living different places in my adolescence. So I always called it soda.
You guys gum bands too?
What's that?
Gum bands?
Gum bands?
Yeah. See, I lived in Pittsburgh for 5 years, so that's like the doorway into the Midwest. So they do a lot of pop a lot of pop out
okay.
west.
I got you.
But gum bands is what they call rubber bands. Gum bands.
Oh, okay.
Gum bands. That's interesting.
Yeah. And see, I'm a soda pop guy. I drink soda pop.
Yeah, there you go.
I do them both. But growing up, and that's just something that I've.
You pony boy soda pop?
Yeah, soda pop. But growing up, everything in Florida here was a Coke. Like when you went to a restaurant, you asked for a Coke. You're like, hey, I'll have a Coke. Okay, what do you want? I'll take a Sprite.
Yep.
So it was funny. So a Coke was everything, and then they asked what kind of Coke you wanted, and then you wanted a Sprite.
The Cokey kind, the Coke.
So yeah. So
it's funny you say that because my sister still says this. I catch myself saying every once in a while when we grew, growing up, when we were talking earlier, we were about an hour and a half outside of Philly. And that was the home of Mac, Money Access Center, the blue Mac cards, money, the money access card, Money Access Center. So everyone always referred to their bank card as a Mac card. Hey, if you find my Mac card, then it's like to this day, my sister's just like, yeah, I got to hit the Mac machine instead of the ATM.
Yeah.
And you go up to Philadelphia area, everything's Mac. It's ingrained in your brain. Like you said, a Coke.
That's it. Gordon, so did you grow up in Michigan, or is that just where you lived for a while? So you grew up in
I was born and raised in northern Michigan, one of the most beautiful places in the world, man. I've not been everywhere in the world, but I've been in quite a few places, and it's beautiful, man. As a kid, you're trying to get out, right? Because there's not a lot of opportunities. There's not a lot of resources. It's either you go to work at a plastics plant or you go to the foundry, which was an ironworks place. And other than that, it was resort style stuff because everybody flocked up north from all around the country. But grew up in northern Michigan. It's a little place called Horton Bay. I believe when I was born in it, I think there was 22 houses in the whole kit and caboodle. It was a subsidiary of a place called Boyne City, which is just outside of Petoskey, right next to Charlevoix, Michigan. Beautiful place, man. And then at a young age, we got a phone call from my grandparents that lived in Scottsdale, Arizona. And it was my mom's family was in Michigan. My dad's family was in Arizona. And we got that phone call that grandpa had a brain tumor, my dad's dad. So it was kind of like, a call to action that we spent a good time of my adolescence. I was probably about 7 or 8 actually, when we moved from Horton Bay, Michigan to Scottsdale, Arizona, just to be able to have my dad spend some time with his dad and for me to get to know my grandfather a little bit. And we spent about a year with him, and then he passed away. And then I lived out there for probably another 6 years. Moved back to Michigan, finished up high school, and then moved back to Arizona to start working, and then moved back to Michigan to live a little bit, and then moved back to Arizona.
Good Lord.
Hence the name Drifter. If that's correlating with anything at this point, just kind of been a nomad, man, my whole entire life. I've lived out of suitcases. I've lived out of tour buses, airplanes, hotels. Great life for a while, until you realize, holy shit, I'm a homebody. Like I don't belong out here past 2 a.m. in all these weird cities. You know what I mean? And
how is that adjusting from Arizona to Michigan to Arizona to Michigan? That seems like two completely different.
Oh, it is. The
weather patterns and everything else.
The shots back to Michigan, I gotta be honest, man. I wasn't really there for the winter times. If anything, I was there. I was soaking up the good northern Michigan and good Michigan weather during the summer, which now is drastically humid. But now Arizona is drastically triple digits. I mean, I remember as a kid visiting Arizona before we moved there as an adolescent. And at one point I still had it in my baby book, my baby box that collects, my mom collected throughout all the years, all the good papers, and it's only the good ones, way more worse than good ones. But it was a skeleton that said, I survived the Scottsdale heat. It was like 113 degrees. And it was a big event. It hit 113 degrees. Fast forward of me moving back out there as a young adult working in the entertainment industry. And I'm like, holy shit, it's like 119 degrees every day now. Like we've well blown past the 113 degree, let's print a shirt out of the deal. Like it is hot, man. And then it got into 120s, 121, 122. And then, we hit a record.
You make a paper skeleton for that?
Yeah. I luckily when I was out in Phoenix, not luckily, I hated being out there because it's for a funeral, but the weather was good. It was really chilly at night. and the days were really nice. You know, probably in the 70s, mid 70s during the day. So it was beautiful. I've only been in Michigan in the summertime, and northern Michigan, Grand Rapids, Hudsonville, Holland. I love antiquing in Saugatuck. My favorite place. But in the wintertime, I can tell you or summertime, I love northern Michigan. As so much as I hate the Wolverines.
I know
northern Michigan is beautiful.
Not football season, Kevin.
It's actually I just learned this the other day. My wife and I are always on Zillow, man. Like you'd think we are multi-trillionaires. How many houses we look at? Like, we're gonna fucking acquire them someday or something.
We could get that. It's
it's just something we like to do. You know what I mean? And we're always looking at stuff, and it's the number one place to retire in the country at this point in time. So northern Michigan specifically, not just Michigan, but northern Michigan.
Yeah,
really.
So, it's been an honor to be from there, man. Everybody everywhere that I've lived since then has said, "Wow, where are you from? You got an accent." And I was like, "An accent?" I was like, "Holy shit!"
Really? Yeah.
So, I mean,
don't worry. Everybody will screw that up. They screwed up Asheville. They screwed up North Carolina. They screwed up Charlotte and Columbia. Now they're destroying Nashville. Nashville is it's just been obliterated with people coming in, the population rising, prices going up.
Yeah.
Nobody can afford to live in Nashville anymore. So they'll ruin another.
Well, it's a little California, man. I mean, when my wife and I moved here, I was just telling Kerr before we went live, is my wife and I came out here on a honeymoon. I've been to Colorado plenty of times.
Okay, so I was going to say, tell everybody where I don't think they know where you're at.
Yeah, Colorado Springs, to say the least.
Okay.
When we came out here on our honeymoon about, this is almost, my wife's downstairs going, "He better get this right."
Yeah.
About 7 years ago. And I've been to Colorado plenty of times, man. It was anytime I went to a big city. I mean, I've been everywhere in the United States dozens of times just because of the past career I had. But I've never gotten to get out and really do the things I wanted to do. Sometimes we'd have a day off on tour. Most of the time we wouldn't. And my days off on tour were catching up with the shit that the rock stars didn't want to deal with, like part of my job, tour managing, production managing, whatever that title looked like on that tour. But I never really get out to go do the things I wanted to do, explore, in Colorado, being the Rocky Mountains. I told my wife, I said, "Let's go to Colorado. Let's get out in the mountains." We love we love nature. We love being out in the woods and hiking. So we came out here and fell in love with it. And we just decided, hey man, I think we're going to double down. We love Michigan, but we need something different. We felt very complacent in life, and the jobs were just mundane. They couldn't pay us enough to stay, that type of point in your life, and we moved out here.
How is that area?
Colorado Springs?
Yeah, Colorado. And the reason why I ask is we were just discussing our ages here, and I didn't want to interrupt you, but this is kind of part of what you're getting into. Is when I graduated college, I was telling you the story about the guys doing the bar. Colorado was like the place everyone wanted to move to.
Sure.
And this was early 90s, mid 90s. So I know a lot of folks who I went to school with, a lot of folks in that, Western or Eastern Pennsylvania, that Delaware. A lot of folks moved out to Colorado. And I remember it being featured in a couple of magazines as it being the place to be.
Sure.
And I even looked into transferring out when I was with Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and it was like, well, there's a waiting list because a lot of people who wanted to move. So we were talking about, Kevin was referencing a couple of different cities, how it's ruined. It seems like Colorado that's quite a long ways away since I remember that being very, very popular. How is it out there? Is there a lot of implants? Or
transplants, absolutely. When my implants, well, I mean, when you get into the Denver area, it's a little hoity-toity in some of those areas. So there's probably a lot of implants up there. Yeah, I would probably say so. People worried about their, That being said, man, when my wife and I came out here, to us, it was a whole new experience, right? Like I said, I was finally getting to explore the things that I wanted to do, which was the mountains. And we fell in love with it, and we were out in the mountains for the majority of the time. And then we came down into Colorado Springs, and I was like, well, realistically at this point, we were in our early 30s, and it was like, all right, well, we know we still need to work, right? Like we can't be 45 minutes to an hour in town and run business, run a certain kind of business, like a lawn care business. We're owner operators. So we hustle and bustle, man. I mean, my wife and I, we kick ass when it comes to having a team, being the team, her and I. And, you know, we knew that we needed to work still. So that was going to be like a long-term plan. You know, we'll get into the city, we'll grow our business, we'll experience what we need to do, we'll handle life. And then in maybe 10 years down the line, we'll get into the mountains. But since we've been here in the city, we thought we were going to be able to get into a house easy peasy. It took us 3 years to get into a house here.
Wow, yeah.
Why is that? For lack of inventory, or is it money?
Well, market. Yeah, just the market. Yeah. You know, and we actually bought our house. We landed our house August 13th of 2020. So like, you know, when pandemic, nothing was necessarily shut down yet. I don't think, if I recall, or it was just getting ready to be shut down. I don't remember the timeline. It's so foggy, but it was just tough market, man. You know, people were like, we'd put a bid down and they'd say, okay, well, you know, as soon as they put the bid in for us, we get a call back or a text. Oh, well, they're 30, you know, they're in the 30K ballpark more than what we're talking.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, holy shit, 30 grand. It's not worth 30 extra grand to me. If it was something that I really wanted, that'd be one thing. But most of the houses, you know, they're matchbooks house, man. I mean, they're put up as quick as you can blink an eye, and there's whole subdivisions built damn near a month. Yeah, you know, and even where we live, I've talked to people, we talk to people in our neighborhood and people that we know here, and they're like, well, I remember the one road you live off of, that was a dirt road 15 years ago. And I'm like, oh shit, like it's expanded that much just in the last, you know, 20 years. They were like, yeah, people used to ride horses on that road. And I'm like, 15, 20 years ago? They're like, yeah, it just keeps growing and growing.
It's nuts. I live in a town, Northport, Florida, which was started, the city, by a company called General Development Corporation. And it was just this corporation, and they're selling all of these plots of land to everybody up north. Come to Florida. Like, they bought hundreds of thousands of acres, and then people would buy plots of land and they'd own them for 10 years, 15 years, 20, and then they finally moved to Florida. But
sure,
GDC was like the same thing. My house took 7 days to build. So when they came out here and cleared the lot, 8 days later, someone was moving in. That's how fast they had whole crews, one crew. All they did was concrete, bam, all the way down a road, all the way down.
Amazing.
And it was just door people. And they would every house was the same, you know, every other house, it was flipped the layout.
Yep. They polar.
Yeah. The same thing, man. Like I said, they just went up, you know, all wood frame, you know, and I bought this house for like $60,000. I bought my first house for $52,000. My daughter lives 10 minutes away. She just spent like $400,000.
Dude,
you know, it's just
crazy.
It's unfortunate, man.
Yeah. So like in your guys' area, Kerr, I don't think we've talked about that in a while. Like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage, like your average, I think, house. What are they running like today in your guys' area?
3, 4. I mean, it's anywhere between 250, 280 to 4. I mean, it's Greenville, and it was interesting what Gordon, when you said about how the horse would, you know, people would just ride horses, you know, where your house is. Well, the area we live is in Simpsonville, which is right outside of Greenville. And, you know, we hear all the time, like our neighborhood was like all cornfields, and that was a dirt road and this, that. But it's also pretty amazing because being here for 15 years, this is the fastest growing county in the state. Greenville's blown up over the years. Downtown is almost unrecognizable anymore. It's ridiculous how fast it's growing. And there's areas that were all farmland, cornfields, mountains, hills, and you drive by now and it's just houses. And they are going up. If you live outside the city, the city of Greenville, you're still going to pay couple $100,000. Once you start getting inside the city, it's unbearable, the prices that you see for houses that are so close to the city. They're several $100,000. You get even closer into the city, and it's a decent home, you're going to be close to $1 million.
God, what about your area, Gordon?
Well, you know, my wife and I were actually, my wife's actually getting ready to finish her coursing or her schooling for real estate out here. I mean, it's the market's saturated. But even just to be able to collect an extra house sale a year, right? Like 1-2 house, like great, we can 401k it, you know, whatever that is.
Yeah.
But there's just so much traffic here as far as people moving and leaving. It'd be stupid not to carry a real estate license here, you know, especially if it's something you like. Like I said, we're always looking at Zillow and we love just geeking out on that kind of stuff. But when we bought our house, again, it was August 2020. And it was like the area that we were in was around 400, which was shocking because the first house that my wife and I bought together was 99.9. It came with, you know, it came with some acreage. It came with lake access. You know, we had elbow room. You know, you don't hear your neighbor farting and yelling at his wife or husband and the kids screaming. And then we moved out here because we wanted to change the scenery, right? We wanted the mountains. We wanted this. We wanted that. Well, the other day we were talking like, what kind of cost is that trade-off, right? Like at our house in Michigan for $100,000. I mean, given we put quite a bit of money into it to make it what we wanted. So for $100,000 in the area we lived in Michigan, Clarkston, Michigan, we had elbow room. We had a nice bonfire area. We had privacy. We had all that stuff. We had nature walking in and out of our backyard. And then we moved to Colorado, which was the place that we ultimately thought that that's where we, you know, we still think we'll be here for quite a while. But we moved here and it's a concrete jungle. You know, precursor to that, we were thinking, oh, this little mountain town, until we realized how many hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people are actually in the city that we will live in. It was a really big culture shock, man. I mean, even in our backyard now, it's like, I just see squirrels like that. That's it. Like there's nothing. And the trade-off for the value of the house to what we once paid and what's, you know, what we're in now, I'd much rather have $100,000 house. I can't lie. If I could have picked that house up and put it here, we'd be much happier. I mean, we love our house, but it's just, we're not concrete jungle kind of people, you know?
Mm-hmm. I am to a certain degree. I said, I always told, because Jessica, eventually we'll have, you know, a little cabin in the mountains in North Carolina somewhere. I promised her that someday, you know, we'll have a little cabin, you know, as a second home or something. But 20 minutes from nachos. That's my rule of thumb.
Well,
if I want nachos, I don't want to make them.
Sure.
20 minutes. That's as far away as I want to be.
Well, here's a kicker though. You know what you want, right? So that's part of it. You know, you don't got to put in energy into anything, you know, anything farther than that. Nah, baby, the nachos aren't close enough. Sorry to tell you that. But you know, now the neighborhood we're in, they're like 550 plus. So in a matter of about 4 years, I mean, there's, you know, you're talking about 150K in the green at this point. So what's that?
But like I said, we're just talking, like I said, in the same thing with vehicles. You know, like I said, you know, houses are $500,000. Vehicles are $100,000 for a vehicle.
Insane.
You know, it's absolutely. And then eggs. How's your guys' egg situation doing? Thanks, Joe Biden. No, I don't know.
Well, does this fucking make us old too? Because we're sitting around a bunch of old dudes talking about egg prices. Because I've been talking about this for about the past week between my mom and family members. Like, man, what are you paying for your? So we're $12 or we're $1 an egg, bro. $12.
Are you kidding me?
Straight up.
Man, I think I just paid $4.89 for a 12-pack.
Well, so Colorado, I believe beginning of last year beginning of this year, we passed the Cage-Free Egg Act or whatever that thing is. A lot of places are doing it now.
Oh, Jesus.
Well, you know, that's also driving the price of everything. So we'll see what happens, man.
My eggs are a double cage. So the chickens are in a cage within another
even
cage.
Better.
Yeah, I was watching a TikTok on that. The stress makes the eggs taste sweeter, you know.
That tastes like solitary confinement.
I remember sitting around talking about the price of beer. Like that's when you're younger. I know. Now you're like, this is the price of eggs. Can you believe the charge just now?
It's crazy though, man. I mean, you know, and I'm not here to get political by any means, but I bought my truck February, months before the pandemic, before we're like, we've got it in the United States, you know, everybody percolate and start to get worried. I bought my truck at the perfect timing, man. It was truck month. They're trying to get it out the door. Doesn't help that there was freaking 28 some plus recalls on the thing. I got the 5th generation Dodge Ram. Don't hate on me.
Yeah.
Kevin, I've been GM.
I like how old you are because you still call it a Dodge Ram, you know, so you still call it a Dodge.
I know.
And so do I as well. So
I don't believe the Ram It doesn't even ring a bell to me. It's done. It's always been done.
It's just like I we had in the shop the other day the new Genesis SUV, and I called it the Hyundai Genesis, and the customer it's a Genesis, and I'm like, you keep telling yourself that, let me pop that hood, and I'll show you where everywhere it says Hyundai on it. So
well, it's got a lifetime warranty. Exactly. What about your rental coverage on your insurance policy? What's that like? That should be the more important question.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And like I said, and I drive a GMC pickup, and it's got a rod knock so loud, I'm waiting for it to come through the engine right now. So, but yeah, I can't get into the dealership for they'll be probably putting an engine in that under warranty. So
yeah, we went through with the first.
Yeah,
we got the Ford Bronco Sport.
Okay.
The Sport. It's like. Man, it's like you said, especially get that first year,
they get wonky.
They get wonky. You know, there's issues, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, we know about that issue," and
but
we're not going to cover it.
Remember, Kerr, I told you all about them issues at the before you bought it. So
that's and
you gave me fair warning of the new vehicles with Fords and et cetera, et cetera. I would not deny you that.
But nowadays, like I said, that's going back, for 30 years. The first vehicle of everything, the new motors. They can't figure shit out. So.
And in some instances, they still can't figure shit out.
No.
So it's
yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's actually where I met my wife. Now that I recall, man, Kevin, I think the first time I seen one of your videos. I think it was a Tech Tip Sunday. And you were something about GM, and I have GM affiliation. I mean, my wife's family, born and bred to work at General Motors. That's, every time you talk to her dad, it's just, well, when I was swinging motors, I'm like, Jesus Christ, we got another factory story. Please don't. We used to drink so much beer and park those fucking trucks on those trailers and like,
Yeah, I know. We used to hear those stories. You don't buy a Friday, buy a Monday or a Friday car. It's like, but yeah, I'm GM diehard. I've never owned anything but GM. I'll never own anything but GM. But everybody's the same now. Everybody's the same. They all are producing less than quality. They're all trying to figure out how much crap extra they can get in their vehicles,
right?
Versus just producing quality vehicles,
something that's solid and not going to break down. But Gordon, you mentioned a few times when you were on the road, and that you would that you were lived out of tour buses and stuff.
Sure.
So I don't think you're using a tour bus for the lawn care service.
It'd be nice, a nice AC, refrigerator, shower, toilet.
So what point between the triangulation between Arizona, Northern Michigan, and Colorado and a lawn care service do you find yourself in a tour bus?
So long ago, 7 years ago. I guess I can just kind of take it back briefly, as light as I can, to being an adolescent. I was in a non-musical family, period. That really wasn't, music was played around the house, predominantly country from my mom's side, classic rock and roll, songwriter kind of music from my dad's side. Loved music, man. Have always loved it. And then it came to a point, I can't remember the age. It was nonetheless middle school. It was like, you either got to play sports or you've got to play in band. You've got to do something extra, right? Other than just go to school.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay. All right. I was like, I want to do band. And I'm like, I'm going to do drums or saxophone, because those were the coolest things you could do that were available in the band.
I want to interject real quick. I wanted to play the saxophone in middle school, but then they found out I had no talent. So I went to the core. I went to chorus instead. But
I'm waiting for this story, because when he starts off with, I was in a non-musical family, I'm thinking of the Partridge Family. But
same here.
Yep, absolutely.
We travel around. What do you do? Yep. Well, we just kind of show up and we play, and people boo us, and we get going.
More of a circus act than anything. But yeah, I mean, needless to say, nobody was musical in my family. It came to the point I had to decide. I said, okay, well, obviously I'm going to do band. I'm not a sports guy. I was a short, chubby little kid. I already got made fun of all the time, just being a short little fat guy. And I was like, I can't do the sports. So I said, all right, I'm going to play the drums or the saxophone. And my parents were like, no, you're not. I'm like, what do you mean? No, I'm not. You gave me the opportunity. I'm telling you. Well, what we have available in our family network was a flute or a clarinet. And I was like, a flute or first of all, I didn't even know what a clarinet was, but I knew what a flute was.
Yeah.
And I knew being the short, fat kid playing sports was going to be tough. And I could now just picture myself being the short, fat kid playing the flute. And
Ralph Wiggum playing the flute. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, you won't be cool unless you learn how to play Jethro Tull when you're stuck with the flute, but go right ahead.
Yeah.
So that was the ultimatum, and I had to pick. And I said, okay, the flute looked a little less feminine. I didn't think I'd be picked on as much as if I played the clarinet. So I picked the clarinet. Okay, cool. And then I started getting decent at it. And then my band instructor was like, we could really use you for the first chair in the such and the I forgot even what they call it at this point. It's probably all changed now, but basically the seniors, the old, I don't mean seniors in school, I mean seniors like Kerr, I'm sorry, AARP stuff. You know what I mean?
No, go right ahead. I listen. You played a clarinet, so go ahead.
I know exactly. I can take it. I can take it. But I was like, what does this mean? And my parents were like, oh, that's great. That's great. You're getting good at it. So then I find myself on a Saturday or a Sunday, just pending what the concert was for. A lot of the time it was in a mall of something, it's just very awkward. And there's like 4 or 5 of us 10-year-olds with 60, 50 plus. I mean, they seemed like 60 years old. Shit, for all I know, they could have been 40 years old at that point in time, right? Like, but I'm like, you're sticking me on the weekends, the only time I have a way to do anything I want for myself. And now I got to go play for 6 hours. I got to be at this place for 6 hours, and I'm playing with a bunch of old people. Like, this isn't fun.
Did you play with Gus Polanski?
No, nope.
So another old person reference. Home Alone, John Candy.
Yep. Oh, John Candy. I'm very familiar.
We had a couple of hit songs back in polka rock.
No, not ringing a bell. Okay.
Not ringing.
Oh my God.
So I got to the point I was like, this isn't fun for me anymore. So they got me a guitar. For Christmas, it was a guitar. It was a PV electric guitar. And I was like, wow, all right. Now we're talking. My first session was with this little completely white-haired ponytail leprechaun looking gentleman. And he was as Irish can be. He came to 2 sessions, stopped coming the 3rd week. It was 1 session a week. It was I think it was like an hour a week. The 3rd session came. I'm nervous. Because I'm always nervous. It's an old. I'm learning. It's nervous. It's nerve-wracking.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't practice like I should have. Imagine that. And he didn't show up. So my parents were like, okay, maybe he's running late. So the next day went by. My mom called the office that she booked all this stuff for. He'd actually been deported back to Ireland because they found him here working, and he wasn't supposed to be here working, and they nipped him and deported him. So that being said, my guitar career ended.
And that was well before Trump, huh? Weird.
Oh,
it's always been going on. That's strange.
But the guitar thing, the weird thing about the guitar thing is, the weird thing about kind of a side effect of my life. My dad was in Vietnam, and he got drafted. He was a hippie by all means. So when he got the trap papers, he was like, shit, like this isn't what I'm trying to do. He had buddies flee to Canada. Who knows what happened to them. And he was like, well, I understand. I don't want to be an outlaw here. So I'm going to sign up. I'm going to pick the path of least resistance. So he said, I'm going to go into the Navy. I'm going to go into data communications. I'm thinking I'm out here. He's thinking he's on a boat. He's away from, the shitstorm happening inland. It just felt like a safer place. And well, it's not a very safe place when you're on the flight deck watching all these jets take off and you're not wearing ear protection and you're watching them load Agent Orange into the belly of these planes, and everything is saturated. Everything, the water they were drinking, the water they were showering in. Fast forward, he got out of it. He did his time and time like it was, for him, it probably felt like prison. But he got out, life went on, met my mom. Then I popped up, and about 8 years old, my mom one day was like, what's wrong with your arm? My right arm. I'm a right arm predominant. I'm righty. And she's like, it just looks really limp. And I go, I think I slept on it weird or something. You know, I'm 8 years old. I don't know what the hell I did. And she's like, okay. So she monitored it for a few days, and it didn't really get any better. And we went into the doctor, and from there it was a long life of guinea pigness, going to the doctor, sticking, prodding. We don't know what this is. We'd like to find out more. The Mayo Clinic's going to pay all these bills just for you to be the guinea pig, because we've never seen neurological problems that you're having as a child this young at any point in our history of researching this stuff. So the Mayo Clinic put up a lot of money and was like sticking and jabbing in me. Never had an answer. I had a few surgeries that actually had they were guesswork. You know, they were like, this might help. And as parents that were loving, they were like, we just want the best for our son. If this is going to help him, we want to move forward with it. You know, being a young kid, I didn't have much say in it. So I went through with these surgeries. Fast forward to nowadays, I actually have more problems from those surgeries than I did from what they were supposed to mediate. But that came into like lifestyle changing and figure out what I can and what I can't do. So that being said, going back to the guitar story and the Agent Orange, I always had a tough time pushing the frets on the guitar. My hands were so numb at a young age. I didn't know that I was supposed to have feeling like other people did. So that made a really weird change in like me wanting to be a musician and in the band stuff. And then I realized I like being behind the scenes. I don't ever like the spotlight ever. So then I was like, you know what? I'm going to get into the technical side of music. I want to be the guy pushing the buttons on the sound, you know, the soundboards and, you know, the lighting and the rigging and all that stuff. And at about so from one Christmas with the guitar, a couple of Christmases later, I asked for a Tascam Porta Studio 414. As a matter of fact, is a 4-track cassette tape recorder. And being great parents, man, they got it for me, and that was history, dude. It was like, wow.
So what could you do with that? Like I said, I'm not familiar with that piece of equipment. So what were you doing with that at a young age?
Just a 4-track recorder. So at which point I could record other people that were playing music. So at that point, I would have been about 14 years old. And a lot of people that I was around at that point were playing in like bands, you know, metal bands, garage bands, you know, Nirvana cover music, whatever it was. And I was just the guy that was like, I'd bring my guitar and, you know, I'd fill in a little rhythm here and there for what I could get away with. I always had like a keen sense of tone. So it's like I never really learned how to play the guitar or all these instruments great, but I learned enough to get in and stick and move with these guys to at least make them sound a little bigger than they were, right? And I just really learned that, man, my fingers suck. Again, at that point in time, I had no idea why. Now, about 4 years ago, I realized it's because of Agent Orange exposure that was carried down from my dad. So that being said, I was like, I'm a tech guy. I love this more than the clarinet. I love this more than when I first opened that guitar on Christmas Day, you know, thinking that my rock career was about to start. And then it fizzled away because of you know, the Irishman getting deported and my nerve damage problem that I have from my dad. And I was like, all right, tech is my world. And, you know, from there on, I mean, I was recording people. I mean, I was putting on little productions in high school. I was renting out the local VFW halls and the Legions and stuff like that. I think they were $200 to rent them, and you got access, you know, to the men and women's bathroom, just a big bingo hall, but it had staging that you could put up, you know, the little risers. They were only like 10 inches.
Yeah.
Then it had a full kitchen. So my mom, I'd hire my mom on, you know, I didn't hire her. I mean, she was willingly helping. Well, she had to sign the paperwork too, because I was underage, technically speaking.
Yeah.
So she was the adult on premise, and she would do like a little concession stand, nachos and hot dogs and all this just random shit that you could eat. And she was like, wow, you really have a little knack for this. And I was like, I'm telling you, Mom, like, this isn't new to me, you know, young and cocky at that point. I was like, I've been doing this for the past like 2 years, Mom. Like, and things have been working. And finally, for the first time at the first VFW hall, she was like, wow, okay. Well, I see what you're doing at least now. I always tell them about it, but it goes over their head. You know, they were old dogs in the game, and they're like, we don't understand what you're saying.
So 4-track recorder, does that mean you can record 4 instruments
simultaneously?
Okay.
However, when you're learning of sticking and moving, man, I was like, well, if I get an external mixer, I could put 12 channels. So I dial in drums on a mixer and dump it into one channel. And then I got 3 more channels. And then I was like, okay, well, I could just do this over and over and over. So it was kind of like tech hacking at that point in
Right.
time for me. It was like, wow, this is really cool. Now it didn't sound great, right? But that was that's where it all started. And at that point in my life, 16, 17 years old, getting ready to graduate high school, my parents were like, all right, where are you going to go to college? They both didn't go to college. I think my dad maybe had to take some college courses for the Navy, but nobody went to college. They grew up in small towns. I mean, well, my dad was born in Brooklyn, New York, but he moved out of there at a young age. So when I grew up and finished high school, our population was like 2,100 people in the city. Like there was nobody there. Like we had 69 people walk at our graduation class. And realistically, half of those came from the secondary school, was where you went if you threatened you were going to blow shit up, or if you got pregnant at a young age. You went to the secondary school, but you could walk with the school that you were supposed to go to. So I was like, well, I sure as hell don't want to end up just stuck in this town like everybody else is, that kind of mentality. But it was danger, man. It those were the possibilities. You go to college, you work at a factory, or you stick around here, you get people knocked up, you get addicted to whatever it is, and you just get stuck in the mundane life and you never get out. And I've always been outside the box my entire life. And I told my mom and dad, I was like, I don't want to go to college I hate math. I hate accounting. I don't want to be a doctor. I don't want to be a lawyer. I want to do music stuff. Well, there's no money in that. It's not a career. It's not a real job. It's not this, it's not that. And I'm like, okay, but you don't know the research that I've been doing on this. This is a new kind of thing for me to be looking into, and it's evolving even more with technology. So if I get on this now, I could only imagine what the next 10 years could be like. And they were like, no, you've got to do something reliable that's going to pay the bills. And I said, okay. So I went in and got signed up for college and did music production with business management. And they were like, okay, we'll let you do it. So I was like, great. First year in college, my right arm at 8 years old that I was talking about, that my mom said, well, that looks really funny for an 8-year-old boy to have a limp arm. But halfway through the second semester of my college of music production and business management, all of a sudden my right arm is numb. I got a manual transmission car to get to school. I've got keyboard. It was part of the class that I had to take. I had to play keyboard, and I literally I had to do this to lift my arm. I was brushing my teeth, wiping my ass with the left hand, something I wasn't used to. So I actually took a medical withdrawal through school, which was the best thing for me at that point. Mm-hmm. But then I got out and was like, I got to be honest. The stuff that I was learning in that first semester, I've already done it. Not saying I'm the best at it, but it's like, we're paying how much money to have these guys tell me something that I learned from just grabbing on and touching it and doing it wrong 100 times to find out how to do it right. Yeah. The one time.
Just to check a box for the credit.
Exactly. So after I took that medical withdrawal, I really kind of doubled down, man. And I had a good girlfriend that her dad was affiliated with a motorcycle club that was affiliated with Kid Rock in Detroit. And that was actually my first job in the music industry, was pushing cases for Kid Rock.
Oh, how cool.
For $250 a week. And they were grueling, man. I mean, when you're on a tour of any sort, it's not, hey, the show starts at 5 and you're done at midnight. Hell no. It is a 24/7 job when you are on a tour. When you're not working music and doing stuff like that, you're changing the trash out on the bus. You're going to do laundry. You're putting food in the bus. So, but a little before that, I just realized that tech was the thing that I wanted to do. I wanted to be behind the scenes, not in front of the scenes. And I was much more successful behind the scenes. So I doubled down, man, and just started learning the craft of audio engineering, and recording studios was like, I love that, because as a teenager, I was into hip hop, still into hip hop. We'd lease beats from producers, and we'd put our own lyrics on top of it. I still do that even on the side. It's more of a therapy thing. I don't really release it or have a Spotify channel. But it's just fun for me to do. And I was doing that while I was learning more recording stuff. And I'm like, well, can't charge so-and-so to record them because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So I'd record myself and the people around me for free. And then I started doing that, and we'd tread more water. And then I was like, wow, okay. And I was like, all right, it's $25 an hour. Okay, it's $35 an hour. And then I started acquiring more equipment. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to a recording school just to say that I did, to have some credentials. Little did I know I wouldn't really need it. I mean, it's kind of like, if you know it, you know it. If you don't, it's going to show it. But I went to a recording school, an accelerated one, and it was a great experience, man. I don't wish I didn't go. But a lot of it, I was already kind of sticking and moving, doing the thing, but I was learning a lot of technical terms at that point, instead of turning the thingamabob, now I know that I'm turning the gates on and the compressors and the, whatever it is that we were dealing with.
The doohickey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was nice just to be able to get the lingo and be able to copy and paste that moving forward. And really ever since then, I realized that recording studios are great, but you really, you can tell the story, right? Because you can curate anything you want. If you mess something up, you can go back and redo it, which is great. But I learned that I really liked live audio better than recording audio. So meaning concerts, tours, live shows, all that kind of stuff. So I really forced myself into the live industry. And then I got a good buddy in Scottsdale, Arizona, JJ Leach. And he's like, look, man, I got an opportunity to get on a tour and I need a secondary audio guy. Do you want to come with me? And I was like, never done it before, but let's try it. And as far as audio goes, I've been a case pusher. I've been the grunt. I've been the roadie. If the terminology, they don't like that, but that's what they're called. And I was like, all right, man, cool. And then from then out, I was like, wow, there's money in the live concert world. And really ever since then, man, I was hooked. I was getting paid to go out of the country. I was getting paid to go to every big city in the United States and play, depending the band. I mean, we went from 15 passenger vans pulling a 16-foot trailer. I was the tour manager. I was the audio engineer. I was the manager. I was the merchandise manager. I was the babysitter. I was the bail me out of, I mean, every hat I had it on, So these guys are partying their ass off and I'm driving a van in a snowstorm, with a 16-foot trailer in the back with 10 guys inside. I'm like, all their lives are my responsibility. And then we fast forward and then we get into a tour bus and then we get into fly-in dates and all that stuff. And it was like, wow, I really kind of got, I worked hard, don't get me wrong, but it was like, wow, this is, for a 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25-year-old, I was like, I'm living it. Japan, Australia, Amsterdam.
What band?
What's that?
What band?
You name it, man. So I worked with a lot of no names. I worked with a lot of I'll just name some of them. Blake Shelton, Mullet Days, not the Blake Shelton that everybody's aware of since The Voice and all that stuff. Early Blake Shelton, Dixie Chicks before they made the political rant and got shelved as far as all their music goes. Cottonmouth Kings, 311, Slightly Stupid, Ice Cube, West Side Connection, Tech Nine, Backstreet Boys, believe it or not. Backstreet Boys was actually the thing that taught me the most about the entertainment world. When I showed up one day and I'm like, there's like 40 something semis here. And I'm like, wow. And they're like, yeah, we're doing a leapfrog. And I'm like, what's a leapfrog? Well, we've got about 45 semis in the next city we're showing up into tomorrow. These guys that we're at today loaded in last night. So when we wrap this show up and we tear down and we fly to the next venue, it's already set up identical to how it is we just played last night, tonight. And then the guys at this venue are tearing down and leapfrogging to the next place. And I was like, holy shit, the logistics involved in this. And this was 2004, 2005, probably about that. And I was like, wow, there's a lot of moving parts here. And thankfully, knowing a lot of good people in the industry, man, I just kind of picked their brains and I went out on tours as an audio guy. I went out on tours as tour managing, production manager, sometimes, all the hats, like I said, but I found that live music was it paid a lot better and you got to experience a lot more in the world, food, all that gambit. But yeah, so that's kind of what I mean about tour buses and planes. Wow. And yeah, I mean,
so where did you meet your wife? Is this after you decided to leave? Did you meet her on tour?
So I'm busting my ass in the entertainment world, and I'm talking to my mom maybe like every few months, checking in, letting them know I'm alive, that kind of thing. And everybody's like, oh, you must be having a good time, man, partying your ass off. I said, if you only knew how much partying I actually got to do here, because when you're dealing with $50,000 cash and merchandising and it comes up 49,000, you're the guy. You're the guy they're shaking down. You're the guy they're leaving behind the dumpster and moving to the next city because they think you're stealing from them. So there wasn't a lot of partying, man. I mean, sure, we had days off and we got to partake and stuff like that. And it was a great experience, but it just got very mundane, man. I mean, I guess like anything, right? You do it long enough and you deal with enough bullshit. You're like, I got to get out of here. So I did that steadily for about 12 years. And then I quit and I had a bank account full of money and I thought I was high on the hog and I'm going to leave Arizona. That was kind of my base because it was close to California where most of our yards for like the entertainment industry, like they hold a lot of their equipment in California. Okay. That's just how it was with the bands that I worked with and a lot of the record labels I worked with. A lot of them were in Burbank, Studio City kind of stuff. But I was like, I'm sick of not driving my car. I'm sick of not living in the house I'm paying on. I'm sick of not having the shit around me that I'm like, I can't because I'm in Oklahoma and I live in Arizona. Like, there was a lot of those instances and it was like, you know what? I'm a homebody. What the heck am I doing out here? Like, this doesn't make sense for a guy like me. And I just said, you know what? I'm done. I basically told everybody that I had connections with that, look, don't email me, don't call me, don't text me for work, for personal all day long, but I'm done with the industry. A lot of them already know that and understand that because they've, up and down too in that world. And I moved back to Michigan and I moved in with my buddy that I've always done hip hop music with and slept on his couch for a little while, rented a room from him. And then I was like, wow, I don't have any money in my bank account. Why don't I? And then I was like, oh shit, because I didn't pay the IRS. The IRS and a freelance audio engineer thing. I was like, taxes? What are taxes? So the IRS came after me and got me. And we're good now. Thank God. We're on the bright side of the law when it comes to that now. But it was a culture shock, man. And I was like, I was used to having money more than I should probably at a young age. And, if I went to the mall with my buddies and I got a pair of shoes, they got a pair of shoes. If I got a hat, they got a hat, that kind of thing. It was never about money. Money was always important. We need it, but I didn't care about it because I was thankfully making it quick enough. But then when I quit cold turkey and the IRS seized all that money and I went to swipe my debit card for a bottle of water, which was like 96 cents at the time. And I'm like, he's like, oh, it's declined. I'm like, decline? It's not even $1, man. What are you talking about? Swipe it again, decline. And I'm like, okay, here's a credit card. I hate to put $1 bottle of water on a credit card. And he's like, it's declined, buddy. And I'm like, what is going on? So
you're like, damn, that accounting class would have been really helpful.
Yeah,
right now.
you aren't lying, Kerr. You aren't lying. Shit, I should listen to him.
Fucking IRS. They don't tell you about that shit.
Right. So that put me into the world of having to get a job, like pretty much, like now, I had some shoebox money, if you will, cash on hand, but it wasn't enough to last long term. And I knew that, but I had enough money in my bank account, more than enough to figure out the next step. Right. And that's kind of what I was banking on when I quit cold turkey. And then I started working at Cadillac, and that's where I met my wife. Funny story, and I tell it all the time, and everybody's like, "How can you tell that story and her not slap the shit out of you?" Well, it's because I got a really cool wife. She came into my office with my other constituents in the office, and she came in just boiling over at the head. Just, my stupid stepbrother, he left his effing new adopted dog with a broken leg. And she was going off and literally sucked all of the air out of the office and said, does anybody have an Android cable? And got the cable and left. And when she left, I said, holy shit, who was that? And they laughed and they said, oh, that's Angie. And I go, can we never have her back in this office again? And they just laugh about it because they knew her more than I did at that point. And
I thought it was going to be like, I'm gonna marry that woman.
So she was very attractive. Don't get that twisted. But just the way that she came in, a storm, full on ahead, and ever since then, man, it's been a great journey with her, man. She's a really good woman. We worked, I think not together. We worked in different departments nonetheless, but for General Motors, we worked together for probably about 6 years. And that's when we decided, hey, I decided, hey, let's move to Colorado. And she's like, no, I don't think outside the box. I don't do things outside of the box. That's abnormal to quit your job and move halfway across the country and not know anybody there. don't have any friends here. I mean, we have friends here, but you know, precursor to moving here, we weren't established. And I talked her into it. We'd carpool every day to the office, and it was to work, on lunch, on the way home. And it was like, okay, let's do it. And I said, we're selling the house. We're selling our shit off, you know, the stuff that we didn't need. And then boom, that's how I met her, man. And we actually moved in, something that I would never recommend for everybody. We moved into with each other, I think maybe 8 months after dating, pretty early. In my interpretation, I would never, you know, take that gamble, but it was kind of like things just kind of felt right, you know. And it was like,
yeah, same thing with Jessica. You know, I think we were dating for a year, maybe just a little less. Her lease was up on her apartment, and I'm like, you know what? Why don't you just move in here? He's like, no.
Yeah.
She's like, no. And I'm like, listen, we'll do it for a year.
Sure.
A year, you know, and then
Jennifer
9 years later, 8 years later, she's still here.
Stuck.
Yep. You're like,
yeah,
it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to keep doing this. So let's just give it a try. And
where did cigars come into your life originally? Like smoking? I mean,
parents,
uncle, you know, where did that happen? No?
Well, I mean, if you want to take it back to the Marlboro points, I mean, I was in every clam baked par you could possibly be with Marlboros. So I don't know if the nicotine was in my blood at a young age, you know, from not cracking the Plymouth Voyager minivan or what, but the windows on it or what. But no, man, not really. I mean, you know, occasionally I'd see my dad with it's a boy, it's a girl, right? You know, the real classy cigars. Never was really a thing, man. My first cigar was a Gurkha Reserve something or other, Bourbon Reserve or something along the lines. In a glass tube, you know, the wax dip on the end. And I was like,
I know, man, yeah.
This one's fancy.
That's high,
gonna be the
high
one.
Class. Yeah, this is
if I actually knew, right? Like,
yeah, give me that one, my good sir. You know, I'm forging today.
Glass.
And I got it, man. And it was just one of those days. I got off early from work and sunny in Michigan, and I was sitting out back and I was smoking.
Now is this the Cadillac days?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Cadillac days. And I was just like, man, this is so ballpark. It's been about 13, 14 years that I've been around cigars. But it was very, very much intermittently the beginning, right? The Gurkha got me sick as a dog, man. And I was like, there was something in that. And I was like, yeah, nicotine.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, you know, in moderation, maybe I can really get on that thing. And throughout my life, man, I'd always been an intermittent cigarette smoker. Thankfully, I've never needed them. But in the entertainment world, sometimes that was the only way to get away, man. You know, and when you're driving, for instance, I mentioned driving 15-passenger vans. I've drove a shit ton of 15-passenger vans with stinky dudes and girls in the back, and had to do everything on the tour. And no one was there to keep my ass awake when I was driving through snowstorms and trying to get everyone there safe. So I found I'd turn on some classical music and I'd just smoke cigarettes. But I never was like, oh, I need a smoke. It was always like, hey, I need some time away. I'm gonna go smoke a cigarette.
I've been, I'm a mechanic pretty much my whole life, and there's times I wanted to smoke.
Sure.
Like, hey, can you go do this? Hey, go. I mean, no, go do something. He's smoking. He's on a smoke break.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck, give me a smoke break.
I know, man.
Give me some cigarettes so I can take 9 breaks a day.
Politics in the workplace with cigarettes, man. You know, I know. It's brutal. As a matter of fact, when I first met my wife, I would always drive around our building, and she would go out back for her cigarette smokes. And she'd always be like, shit, here he comes. Because every time I pulled up, I'm like, you know, you're going to die sooner. Right. Yeah. And she's like, yeah, I know. And I gave her enough shit, man. She stopped cold turkey, you know, but it is different when you're dealing with a smoker and a non-smoker, right? Yeah. Like your upper lip stinks. Like, I mean, I'm guilty with the cigars, right? Like we know that too. My wife doesn't complain about it, but I complain about her stinky lip.
Luckily, my wife smokes cigars. So
I know.
Like my daughter sometimes come over like you guys stink. We don't smell nothing. You know?
Good.
So right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jennifer was a cigarette smoker for years. You know, and when I first been, she stopped within the first year of us dating, and she just picked up. She was always afraid to start smoking cigars because she thought it would kind of be the devil's gateway back into cigarettes. But then a few years ago, she started back at, you know, she started with cigars, and she's been fine ever since.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jessica was a cigarette smoker. She'd stopped years before I met her, and I got her into cigars, and now she smokes those little cigarellos, and that's becoming a nasty habit for her. I mean, those tins are 20 to a tin, and I think she's smoking one a day sometimes.
Oh boy.
On those, and it's probably the equivalent of one cigar, but yeah.
What do they call them? Cornets or something? Is that what the
everybody? Yeah, cornets, cornetas,
Yeah.
cigarillos. What everybody has their own little name on them.
Yeah.
But she keeps paying retail for them. She goes up.
Oh,
I'm like,
no.
Listen, I legitimately own a cigar company. I buy this shit wholesale. I mean, it's 50% off. And it was a funny story on that. She was going up to our buddy Shabazz, Northport Cigars. Kerr, you were there. And she kept, she would go all the way up there, across town. I'm like, why are you always going to Shabazz? Oh, he sells them for $10 a tin. I go, no, he doesn't. And I go, that's what I pay wholesale. Well, yeah, that's what he charges. And I'm like, no, he doesn't. So she went up there, bought some, brought the receipt back. And I'm like, oh, it's weird. He must be, how's he getting them for a better price than me? So for months she was buying them up there, but he was never there, like ringing her out. Then one day he rung her out and he goes, what the hell is this? And he goes, this is what I pay for these. And she's like, somebody fucked up at
they did
in putting them in. He probably hadn't made a dime on those things in years, and until he rung one out, and then now the price is different.
Maybe that's what kept people coming in. Who knows? That's
crazy.
But yeah, I mean, that was really my intro to cigars, man. Was that first Gurkha Reserve, and needless to say, I put down cigars very quickly after that first experience. But then just being around them more, and realizing that the etiquette that's involved with it, right? Like you got to start somewhere. And I started in a chain smoking of a cigar that, that was way too heavy for what I should be smoking to start smoking cigars. And it kicked my ass. And I learned from it. Learned to the point that I'm here still smoking cigars and now trying to make them,
I smoked a cigar last night that kicked my ass, and it was a Cornelius and Anthony Mistress. That's been in my humidor for probably 5 years.
Interesting.
And that cigar, because my buddy Juan Cancel from Protocol Cigars was smoking one, posted a picture of it. I'm like, oh yeah, I have a Mistress. I haven't had one in years, and it kicked my ass. And man, it's been a hot minute since I had a cigar. I had to go get a piece of candy.
Right.
And, halfway through it. So yeah, it was and like I said, it was easily 5 years old.
That's
it was still that powerful. So
that's good. They're good cigars. They were really good brand, good flavor.
Yeah. So Craig Vanderslice, aka Cigar Craig, ran in. He was just at TPE last weekend. He ran into God, his name eludes me now. The former owner of Cornelius and Cigars, and that was actually at TPE. And Craig's like, what are you doing here? Because he sold out. His family was in tobacco, like cigarette tobacco, and so when he bounced from the industry after he sold all that, a couple $100 million, and so he's back at TPE. So kind of, maybe like alluded a little bit, like hey, the industry might not be dead for me, kind of.
$100-something million. That's a hell of a lot of pennies.
So yeah, so maybe we'll see Cornelius and Anthony back again someday. Who knows? But
that'd be nice.
But yeah. So how long before you become a nerd? Like you were like delving into it? Was it a pretty quick process for you?
I would say probably within the last 3-4 years is really when I really hunkered down and I was like, oh, okay, shit. Now we're smoking multiples a day and it's like, okay, like when can I get a cigar? I was like, I like taking the time away. I like the time that's associated with it. I don't have to do any. I mean, I did my best to put the phone down, right? Step outside for an hour and a half. I mean, I'm smoking in my studio right now, but trying to, at some point we do want to sell the house. I don't want to have to deal with smoke mitigation, but
so being I mean, we always talk about a yard gar.
Sure.
Having a lawn care company.
Sure, man.
Are you? I'm not that guy. I can't do yard work.
No.
I can't be outside smoking. Are you?
I've tried.
No, well, I mean, for a few reasons. I mean, we keep it as professional can be. We put a lot of money in our company to show up to someone's house looking like, oh, they're making money, right? They look like money, right? So we're not the guy with 4 different colored panels on his truck and the trailer that he inherited from his great granddaddy. And, you know,
my buddy Lawn Care Dave, rest his soul. That was Dave, you know, a truck come pulling up like missing on 3 cylinders. And, he's got to come back the next day because he only has 1 weed eater and it broke.
Right.
He'll be like, I'll catch you next time, you know.
Sure. You know, and I'm not hating on anybody that does that, man. I just knew I just knew the vision that I wanted for us to try to be a successful business, because here in Colorado, man, I mean, just like cigar companies, there is a million people that are willing to cut your grass. But you know what?
Same here in Florida. Any given day, during the week, there's 6 different lawn care companies in my neighborhood.
So it starts to make you think a little bit too, right? So like you're out smoking a cigar leisurely and you're like, why did I see 3 lawn care companies in the last 40 minutes? Yeah. How is there that much money in this industry that there's this much competition? And the crazier thing is where we live in Colorado Springs, there's 3 military installations. Well, actually 4 if you want to count the Space Force that's in the Cheyenne Mountain. Which is probably going to get relocated. I don't know the politics of that, but so it's a very big military town, which means people are coming and going all the time. That being said, there's also a lot of women that are home that some of them just don't know how to cut the grass. Some of them don't want to cut the grass, you know, especially when they've got a spouse away on orders out of the country or whatever that looks like. So we found a really nice niche, man, and we found that looking nice, showing up on time. The biggest thing that we brought to our lawn care company is business. Anybody can come cut your grass, but when Joe Schmo blows out your door wall, like I did my 2nd year in business, does he have insurance to pay for that? We had insurance to pay for it, but I knew enough about business that I said, I'm paying out of pocket because I'm not going to carry this premium increase for the next 5 years, you know? So having a good glass guy is very important, you know, in your Rolodex. So, it was a really good market, man. I've worked, so when we quit our General Motors jobs, we came out here just we were just going to take some time for ourselves, get out and explore, do some things that we wanted to do, which we did. And I worked for a CBD startup company out here. They fizzled when you've got drug addicts and alcoholics running all the back end. It doesn't last very long. Good paying job, but I got out before it got bad. And I was like, that's it. And I'm sitting home just going, what are all these guys cutting grass for? How are they cutting all this grass? So I just dug in, man. I just 10 toes down. And I was like, wow, there is a market here. I don't want to cut grass. I hate cutting my own grass. When we come home from cutting our routes, because again, we're owner operators, I'm like, I don't want to fucking cut our grass. It's, you know, we're not making money cutting our grass. And that was the hard part. But you know, the amount of money that people will pay you to cut grass is actually disgusting. And the only reason that we cut grass is, I always joke, we're just grass cutters, man. I mean, literally that's all we do. I mean, we do a great job. Don't get it twisted, but we're just cutting grass, and it's how much per, you know, and it's like, okay, well, you take 60 times 20 and you do that 5 days a week. And then you do that for 8 months of the year. And you're like, whoa, okay. Well, that's a lot of flexibility in time, having the winters off and, you know, being able to stick and move and getting to, you know, have time to do the things that I love. So I oddly enough was able to convince my wife into, hey, I think we should start a lawn care company. And she, to be honest, she wasn't on board the first year and a half of it. She, again, being a very inside the box kind of person, she was like, I've always worked for somebody. I don't know how you can do this. I don't know how you have the guts to do this. And I'm like, look, I've been a freelance guy other than working at General Motors and a couple weird jobs, very short-lived, just to fill in the gaps. I've been freelance my entire life. If I wanted money, I needed to go get it. So that's nothing new to me. The weird thing that was new to me was showing up for 40 hours a week, taking an hour lunch every day. And I'm making this much. Sure, it's great money, but I could be doing a shitload more with the time that you are requiring from me at this job. So I talked her into starting the lawn care company, man. And here we are 5 years later, full-time in business. And we actually just had her, she had a job on the side as well, where she was able to run our business on the front end. take all the calls, do all the scheduling, do all that, all that kind of finance stuff. And thankfully she's able to leave her job now. So she's actually going to be leaving her job shortly and working as a mom and pops kind of company, if you will. And also
all you do is lawns. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
So, again, with that neuropathy that I have from Agent Orange, lifting heavy things is not my, other than weightlifting, lifting, a better rock is not what I'm trying to do. I mean, here's the thing. We invest in the machines to do it, right? Like the machine's going to call in less than an employee. So instead of putting $30,000 towards an employee, let's put $30,000 towards our gear, run it ourselves. Our quality control is at our fingertips. Right. If there's problems, we can iron them out because we know what we do. We know how we do it, and we know what we're capable of. And we also know about business, which a lot of these guys in this industry, they're like, yeah, we cut your grass. You owe us $20. Well, how do I pay you? Cash.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. Okay. In a cashless world almost that we live in nowadays, no invoicing, no, nothing. A lot of times they were like, you speak English. And I'm like, well, I do. Thank you. Thank you for noticing. They're like, we appreciate that because we can understand, we can communicate better. And my wife and I found that communication in the lawn care landscaping industry is the number one thing that is lacking in any shape or form. Anybody can make tall grass short, right? And
it's the same. It's the same in the handyman industry. It's the same in any industry.
Yep.
I find it extremely hard sometimes to be able to give my money away. Like I want to give somebody my money because I have a chore that I don't want to do. And I am getting sick and tired of calling 6 guys, 8 guys. I needed my fence repaired, because we put we built the cigar lounge. We had to take down part of the fence. I'm not a fence guy.
Sure.
It was like 9 months to find somebody that would come out to give me an estimate on fixing my fence. And it's like, I don't know, 6, 8, 9, 10 companies. And it's just like, for the love of God, just please come out and let me give you my money.
We talk about that all the time. We talk about, trying to even supporting local, like trying to get some local business. And it's like, listen, I'm trying my hardest to reach out to you because you're a woodworker and you said that you could do X, Y, Z. I sent you this. I sent you that. I'm asking for, I'm not saying I don't want to spend more than $50. I'm saying I have a budget. I want this. What is it? And it's like, okay, now I got to chase after you to give you my money. Nah, it's okay.
Yeah. I want to give my money to people that want to show up. I don't, and that's the first red flag, right? Like if they can't communicate what your needs and wants are, they're not the right people. Just call it for what it is and move on to the next one. Is debilitating as, calling 30 people for one service that you need done because nobody's calling back. You can't understand the lingo. They don't understand what you're saying for whatever reason, whether it be language, whether it just be communication. It's pretty wild, man. We actually got a letter from our HOA last year. Conveniently enough, my wife and I were walking the dog one morning and I was like, holy shit, there's a lot of paint crews out. And I've got recurring vertigo. So the businessman in me was like, paint business? Huh. Can we fill this in? I'm like, hell no. I got recurring vertigo. You will not find me standing on a ladder, no more than 6 feet. That's just not my world. And we were just walking the neighborhood. It's like, wow, that house is getting painted. That house is getting painted. Oh, I didn't even think it needed painted. I'm like, something's going on. And then about a month and a half later, we got a HOA notice in our thing that's saying that, this side of our house, which is the facing the sun the most, I was like, they're going to hit us at some point. I don't know when it's going to be. And then sure as shit, about a month later, we got an HOA notice saying you need to repaint your house. And we got quotes on that, man. And it was like brutal. $7,000.
Yeah.
And the guy did fencing too. And I was like, our fence is standing up, but we did we were thinking about changing it just because we changed the colors of the house. And I was like, could you just give me a quote while you're here? He goes, well, I'll have to come back to do that. I'm like, come back to do that? You're here for 3 days, man. Like, what do you mean come back? And he was like, probably about $5,000. And I'm like, I'm looking for an estimate. I'm not looking for an open-ended.
I hate that shit. probably about.
Yep.
Give me a fucking estimate, on there. But I when we built the lounge, I painted the lounge, and then my boss, his buddy was down from Massachusetts, and he's a painter doing some jobs. And I was complaining. I'm like, oh, I got to paint the rest of my house now. I got all the paint. He's like, he told me, I gave him all the dimensions. He goes, I can give you a price. And he's like, $1,000. I go, deal. I don't want to do it.
Yep.
Sold. Come out and do it. Don't care. Yep. I got all the paint. You don't need anything. I got a sprayer. If you want to use a sprayer, I go, it's good to go. I'm like,
you need some cocktails. I got you on those too.
That's it. I don't want, but yeah, like I said, just everybody, I got a guy coming over next week to fix work on my computer and my business computer here. And I called a couple people and it's like, they were uninterested. Well, it could be this, it could be that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I know. Sure. It could be that. I need someone to fix it.
That's why I'm calling you.
So that's why I'm calling you. So this guy, and this actually, it was last Sunday. And I sent us an email to the company. I found him a good recommendation. He said, like 5 o'clock at night. He's like, hey, call me right now. I'm like, oh, okay. So I walk through and he's like, okay, it could be this, but I really need to come out and take a look at it. He goes, I'm pretty sure I could fix it in just a couple hours. And he goes, I do have a service call of, and I'm like, and I cut him off. I go, I don't care. I don't care what your service call is. Yeah. My business computer. I need it fixed.
Yep.
Just come out, give me a bill. I will pay you. And he goes, all right, see you next Friday.
Make it easy.
So that's it.
Yeah. I mean, we've answered the phone. I mean, my wife does it predominantly answering the calls. I mean, that's kind of, I always call it like, you're the admin, but she's also the grass cutter too. So I don't know at what point that line gets skewed that I don't have to call people, but nonetheless, she deals with most of our customers and our clients. And nonetheless, man, if we can't do it, we'll tell them. And I can't tell you how many times they've said, thank you for telling me that you're not available.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Thank you. Take care. Bye. That's it. So that just being straight and transparent, as transparent as you can be in business, right? Like, no, we can't take this on. Yes, I can. This is what it is. Streamline it, abate the 5 and 6 text messages or emails or phone calls and put all the shit there. Get it done. This is what I want. Tell me what it costs. Do it. When's your availability?
Yeah.
I make it happen.
No. Yeah. It's just my, and then it's like Kerr said, it's all these people. It's like, then they're complaining that they're slow. Oh, people should support small business. Should they? Yep. Should they support yours because you're running it half-ass?
Yep.
It's just it's driving me insane.
My thing's always the due diligence, right? I'll do the due diligence to try to support local, but when they prove themselves wrong, then I have to do what I have to do. I mean, it's just, that's the moral of the story, man. It's
So sometimes a company, I always say the best service a lot of times is the companies that have an HR. If they have an HR, that means they're going to come out. It means they're probably going to come out. They're going to do a good job. You're going to get an estimate. You're going to pay a little bit more, but guess what? You're not going to fuck around back and forth.
That's a good analogy, man.
For forever. But well, I said I try and support local business, like you said, until it just doesn't work anymore.
I found that too. I'm sure, Gordon, you may have found out this too. Being a cigar brand owner, it's we always support your local cigar shop.
Mm-hmm.
Cigar your local community. Don't don't go be online.
Yeah.
But then when you're a cigar brand owner and you bring your local cigars in, it's got to be a two-way street.
Sure.
If you want me to support your cigar shop, if you want me to promote your cigar shop and bring people in here and do it, why don't you bring my cigars in? And at that point, when you get someone who balks on it, then you're really not walking the walk of being someone who promotes local brands, a local company. Sure. At that point, you just want people to support you because you're local. But if you got to support someone else that's local, then all of a sudden there's a scale that you want to start throwing things on, and it doesn't work that way, because I'm sure in your area here, we got enough cigar shops. We got plenty of them.
Yep.
That's it. That's a good segue, Kerr. In case people are joining in, this isn't Gordon Blair from the lawn care company that we're promoting.
Sure.
He actually owns a cigar company called Drifter Cigar Company. So tell us about the first time. Like I said, Kerr and I, we've asked this question a million times to people, and it's always like I said, I call it the campfire story. You're sitting around with some buddies or whatever, you're smoking cigars, like, you know what? I should make a cigar, Sure. So what's the Drifter campfire story on how you started?
You know what? I wish it had all this boom, glitz, and glamour. But in this room that I'm sitting in my house, it's nonetheless my recording studio. You know, kind of just to get creative and therapy room, whatever you want to call it. But I'd come up here and smoke cigars. You know, I'd do research on the internet just randomly, Zillow even, matter of fact. And then I started looking into people's stories, and I'm like, well, some of these stories seem kind of boring. Like, no offense, you know, there, I'm a new generation smoker, right? Like, I'm not your grandpappy's guy. I don't have those stories. I don't have that skill set to bring to the table that I was on, you know, Uncle Pappy's lap at 2 years old, and that's when I got my first cigar toke, right? Like, I just a new guy, man. And I've always been into the underdogs, the boutique, the craft, you know, whatever you want to call it. I know everybody's got their own terminology. I would say craft boutique, I guess the same way. But I just said, you know what? My whole entire life is a story, as all of ours. But I was like, I've got a lot of fucking cool stories, man. I really do, as far as the entertainment world goes. But every couple of years, I feel like I'm waiting for the next thing. You know, I'm waiting to move to the next place. My wife and I did the math on this. About every 2.5 years in my entire life that I've been alive, about every 2.5 years, I've moved somewhere on average. And I was like, well, Drifter has always been a big persona to me, even in my entertainment days, because I was drifting all over the world at that point in time. I mean, I've got a huge tattoo down my side that I've had for years. And I've always been a drifter. Buddy and mine, we did a little mixtape thing, drifter music kind of thing. And drifter has always been that word in my vocabulary that described me the best. And as I'm sitting in the studio where I get creative and do the things that I love, I'm smoking cigars, and some of them I'll get an eighth of an inch in me. I'd be like, no, I just know this isn't for me. I know you should wait to the first third, the half, whatever your protocol is. I've lit some up and I've been like, nope, right out of the gate.
I'm with you, man. I give it two or 3 minutes, and then it's just like, I only got a little bit of time tonight.
Yeah, you can tell right out of the bat.
Yeah,
that's it. Not fucking with this cigar for an hour and going to bed angry because I
and you know, realistically, I've got multiples of pretty much every cigar that I have. You know, from I guess I could say competition now, right, to my own line stuff. And I'm like, okay, I'll give the benefit of the doubt. I'll try it again. I'll revisit it later, right? So I'll light another one up, and most of the time, it's just like, no, first time was right. Yep. It's not good. So I was like, okay, so I look up the people that I smoked that from, you know, not name dropping anybody. And I'm like, weird. Like, they've got this huge following. Like, these people that are like, holy grail, like, we worship the ground they walk on. I'm like,
yep,
what's going on here? And I'm like, I'm a funky kind of dude. Like, I like talking to people. I like mingling. I got a lot of stories to say. So as I was sitting in this creative room of mine smoking cigars, I'm just like, you know what? I've got a lot of great names. I got a lot of good punchlines for blends and all this stuff. I'm a very creative guy. And I learned over the past couple of years that if I don't start putting that out there, you know, that whole you don't use it, you lose it kind of thing. And as I'm, maybe it's because I'm getting older too, and I'm realizing things are changing, time's getting shorter, you know, we're not promised tomorrow type deal. Let me start focusing on the things that I really show a lot of interest in. My wife, you know, my life, enjoying myself. But we also know we need to make money to enjoy ourselves, right? Like, money is the worst evil thing in the world, but everybody needs it. Mm-hmm. So I've got this lawn care company. It's been pretty successful so far. And I'm like, and we've got actually a soap company. Oddly enough, we've got a Drifter soap company, a little small batch boutique soap company, all natural, vegan, GMO, all that stuff free. And then I'm a coffee guy too. So I'm like, okay, well, there's Drifter coffee. Okay. And then I was like, Drifter, well, all this kind of kept going back to Drifter Cigar Company. And I'm like, that just makes the most sense. We are doing all three, tentatively the coffee thing. That's kind of on the back burner because there's so much on the plate right now. But between the soaps, our lawn, what's that?
From the back roaster.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. There you go. And that being said, man, I just said, you know what? If I'm going to seek things in life, I really got to start doing it now. So the passions that I had, the things that really showed me interest, I just started doing research, man. I don't fly blind. I spend quite a bit of time indulging into whatever it is. I mean, you name it, from A to Z. There's been all kinds of weird shit that I've been like, I think I could do something with this. Most of the time I'm like, financially, it doesn't make sense. Time wise, it doesn't make sense. It involves too much time with too less payout. So my objective is
that sounds like the cigar company,
yeah,
or the cigar world. Yeah,
zeroed right in on that one.
So it's like, what can my wife and I do to be together as much as possible, because we absolutely love each other's company and we kick ass as a team? What could we do together parallel that we've got multiple sources of revenue, right? Like, so our lawn care is a big one. Our soap one's a very light thing, but it does bring some income in. And then the cigars. And I was like, okay, I know it's an industry of pennies, right? But it's my pennies now, right? Like, it's not the consumer's pennies anymore. I've been a consumer, avidly for years now. And I'm like, you know what? If the shitty cigar guys can do it, why couldn't I? And I'm not looking to be Saka, right? I'm not looking to be Nick Melillo. I'm not, that's not the goal. The goal is to just have a passion and highlight it a little bit and tell some stories that I wouldn't normally just bring up out of the blue, without knowing me and going, hey, tell me that time you were on tour with so-and-so. And I found a way that I could really broadcast like past memories that were good and fun and just, lifetime experiences into something new, into something a little bit different. I'm just another dude trying to make a cigar company, right? There's fucking millions of us. We know that at this point. There's a million fucking good cigars. There's 2 million bad cigars. I just wanted to have a good cigar and somebody to say, hey, that was pretty good. Not like, oh my gosh, there's Gordon from Drifter Cigar Company. Because again, back to middle school, back to the bands, I don't want the spotlight. That's the most awkward thing to me. But I like being behind the scenes. So I like being the driving force of a lot of things. I just don't like being necessarily the face. But this is also that opportunity in time, that opportunity in life that I'm like, okay, now the outside of the box has got to step outside a little bit more out of the box. It's a big undertaking. There's no investors with this Drifter Cigar Company. It's literally me. Kind of like our lawn care started. I told my wife about it, said this. She said, She's not a cigar person. And I said, oh my gosh, I just watched a cigar prop. And oh my gosh, I just won a cigar prop 5-pack giveaway. And she's seen how excited I got out of that. The little wins in life. And she said, you really do get excited about that stuff. I go, I know. And then she started to see the passion of being able to do something other than just smoke a cigar, right? I'm very hands-on. I'm very creative. We've got paper cutters. We've got all kinds of arts and crafts throughout our whole house. And this essentially is exactly that, right? It's materials that are put together to be a piece of art. And I found a lot of creativity outlet, a big outlet of creativity by thinking about building a cigar. I didn't want to white label it. I'm not calling up places saying, hey, give me your cheapest cigar. I want to know about it. Again, like our lawn care, we're owner operated, but that's because we control the quality control. Now I'm not rolling these cigars, but so far at this point in the game, I'm telling the manufacturers like what I want it to be and what needs to go into it. I'm not a blender. I'm not a master blender, but I know what tastes good to me and I know what doesn't. So,
well, where do you jump from that idea, that thought of I want to do cigars to, okay,
sure.
Now I love cigars. I know as much as I can, but like you said, I'm not a blender. I'm not a roller. I'm going to need a factory. I need to go somewhere. I mean, where do you make that connection and that leap?
So as far as the actual brand, the Drifter Cigar Company, that's been 3 years, boots on the ground working, 3 years of actively all of my fingers and toes in the game of doing, percolating a cigar that I could sell at some point, on top of the numerous amounts of taste testing and, bundles of cigars that were just like, this isn't it. This, smoking 20, 30 cigars and being like, it's good, but that's not what I was looking for. And that's a whole new learning thing too, right? Like I've smoked consumer cigars that I didn't like, but then I just went on to something that I liked. Mm-hmm. So putting it in my own wheelhouse, I was like, okay, well, this is a whole new thing. Like this isn't consumerism anymore. It's competition, right? Like what I'm doing will be competition to someone else to some degree. the pond's big enough for everybody. We know that. And again, you know, a million good cigars, a million bad cigars, whatever way you want to look at it. I just wanted to make a good product. So for the last 3 years, we've been active with it. And about 4 years ago is when I was kind of percolating the idea of, hey, you know, start doing the research on it. 3 years ago, I really jumped into it to the point. I mean, I went through about 48 blends before I found 2 that I was like, oh, I think this could hit market, you know, and we're not in stores anywhere yet. We're still waiting for all that to get hashed out. So we're not able to buy at this point in time, but you know, the samples that I've given out to all my buddies, my big shout out to Tooth and Bear in Woodland Park. Jake Roddick, he's the owner up there. I got a bunch of good buddies out there, man. And right out here in the mountains, it's about a 55-minute door-to-door drive for me, but it's a beautiful lounge in the mountain. And it's about a 2-hour round trip every time I go there. And great dudes, man. They know a lot about cigars. They know a lot about tobacco. And I just started dumping all these cigars on them. And I'm like, hey man, try these out. You know, and I get feedback. No, that yes or no. That's all I would ask for. You know, I understand that I just gave you a sheet, a document saying, hey, here's 6 cigars. Tell me as much as you can about it. I just wanted to, was it good or wasn't bad? Just give me a thumbs up, a thumbs down. That's all I need. So that tells me that the money that I'm investing of my wife and I's is going to the right direction. Right. So, and if it wasn't, could you please tell me? But if not, it's no big deal. And man, I have been so gracious. I would say probably 90% of the little pamphlets I gave with all the samples to my buddies, they've all, I mean, stacked. I mean, very in depth of would buy again, would not buy again, would buy boxes of these, you know, and they've been really the driving force of saying, you know what, I think there's something here.
Now, prior to that, though, real quick, Gordon,
sure.
and I don't know if you can speak to it, but prior to giving your friends the samples, how do you seek out the factory? How do you come up with the blends or the cigars that you're putting in the hands of your friends? Because with that many blends, there has to be at least some sort of a thought process or wheelhouse of flavor or types of cigars that you want to have your name on.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, I, you know, in that, before that 3-year mark of really into the game here, it was like, let me test the waters. Let me reach out. I'm a very communication driven person. So, I mean, and it probably goes back to my days in the entertainment industry. Like, you know, communication was a lifeline. Cause if we got to a venue and there wasn't all the lights and the sound we ordered, cause we've got Slipknot coming and they need fucking 120 18-inch subs in the front of their stage and they only got 20, the show's not going to go on. Slipknot, that's a story and a half there. So I just started hitting the ground, smoking cigars in the creative studio, just hitting the ground, reaching out to companies, from everybody big to everybody small. And I would say I probably heard back from about 30 of the factories, or I mean, about 30% of the factories that I reached out to. Most of the consensus was, hey, we wish you the best luck. Unfortunately, this just isn't a project for us to take on. You know, we're doing a million cigars like every 2 days, you know, whatever that picture looks like.
Yeah.
I'm a small dude, you know what I mean? And it's just like, we don't have the time for it, but thanks for reaching out. Then there was the other ones that would say, the few that said, hey, reach out to us at the beginning of Q1 the following year. That's when our books are a little bit more open and we have a little more flexibility and a little availability. Got all kinds of emails saying, hey, we can sell you these cigars. And I'm like, well, that's cool. And like, you're a reputable brand. And I know that. And I've had similar cigars that you make that you're telling me that this is going to be similar to, but I'm interested in the creative part of it. I'm interested in the 300 hands, you know, comment that we've heard for so long in cigars. I'm looking for the history. I'm looking for the people that are doing it. I want to know, you know, I don't want just a cigar to sell. I want to know about it. I want to be about it type deal. And there was a specific one that I reached out to on Instagram, called Lanuza Cigar Factory. They're out of Esteli, Nicaragua. Raul Lanuza, he's a 3rd generation master roller. He's been in tobacco his entire life. And he's a mom and pops kind of dude too. And I was like, oh, well, that's cool. And we sent some messages back and forth, and he informed me like what his capabilities were and what he does and what he was looking for his future to turn into. And we had a lot of good conversation. And I was like, okay, I mean, shit, you're the first person that's really allowed me to enter into this world of conversation about tobacco. So he started sending me the fumas and samplers and, you know, and the samples of tobacco and literally just going through and tasting, you know, writing down A1, C5, you know, J2, those all tasted good. Now let's smoke them all together. Oh, okay. That tastes like shit. So let's not do that. Oh, okay. That tastes good. So there was so much of just plus minus on my own accord. I mean, I'm literally sitting in this studio that I'm in right now and just smoking tobacco after tobacco, no full-blown cigars per se, just tasting the tobacco. And then I would divvy it all together and I'd say, Raul, I want this Vitola. I want, you know, this is the wrapper binder filler, whatever it looked like, right? Or whatever we were talking about. I didn't know what I was looking for directly to kind of answer that question. I didn't have any expectations other than knowing I wanted a good tasting cigar. I'm kind of all over the place with cigars. I mean, you know, I don't love Connecticut's. I'm actually trying to smoke more of them just to open up that palate. I've smoked quite a few of them. It's just not my go-to. Generally, Habano is generally my number one that I go to. I just like the spiciness. So I didn't really have an idea. I just knew what I was trying to do. And throughout that conversation and plenty of sample orders, you know, thousands of dollars later of just burnt up money, R&D, I'm like, okay, cool. Well, here's a 5-pack of 5 different cigars that I think taste okay. And then I'd hand that out to my buddies. And I'd say, look, man, this is what I'm working on. It's just a project. Tell me your honest opinion, because this is my hard-earned dollar that's going into it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, no investors. I'm not looking for an investor. I want it to be organic. I want it to be grassroots. But I knew I didn't want a white label. I knew I just didn't want something off the shelf that I could slap a band on. I wanted to be part of it. And Raul Anuza, man, he has been absolutely pivotal, geez Louise, a pivoting point in the Drifter Cigar thing. The whole thing, man. He's just great conversation. He's been in the industry his entire life. Any question I have, he'll answer for me to the best of his ability. He's given me all kinds of connections that, you know, that I would never normally be able to get up just off of online. And he's really been the driving source of Drifter Cigar Company. And conveniently enough, right? Like right as you start picking up momentum with somebody, then you get an email saying, hey, it's the beginning of the year. We're recircling our emails and now we've got availability. And I'm just like, okay, well, you know, shit, how do I tell you, you got to wait for me now? But that's kind of what it turns into a little bit. You know, I'm not saying my email was flooded by any means. I'm just saying I did get some emails back over the past couple of years that said, hey, we do have some availability now. And, you know, because it's a tight budget, because it's all my income, you know, I'm really just trying to throw it one way, see how that goes, and then we move and grow from there.
It's all about timing on both ends. Like you said, as much as they give you the, hey, it's not a good time for us, you know, when it is a good time for them, it just may not be a good time for you. It's just
right.
The long and short of it.
Yeah. So that's really, I mean, how I, you know, as far as like my connection into a manufacturer, into a factory, into being able to tell them what I'm looking for. Right. And I don't want to say necessarily they were all bad, but there were some ones that were not right, you know, and that's just because there was no palette that I was looking for. I was just looking for something good. And when you don't have a direction, that spectrum just, it opens up. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm solid with 3 blends right now that I really like. There's actually a 4th one in the pipeline right now. The one that I'm smoking right now is the 3rd one kind of in the pipeline. It's a Sumatra. I can't give you the tentative name to it because I've noticed in the industry, as soon as you think of something good, boom, someone releases a brand new cigar with a name that's damn near what you were going to call it.
Steal shamelessly.
Shit, man.
Now, Kevin, which one did you smoke, Kev?
I smoked the Hooligan, and now I'm smoking the unbanded one, the SB SA7.
Okay.
So let's get into the Hooligan.
Sure.
And tell us a little bit about that cigar.
Yeah, so the Hooligan, technically speaking, the Hooligan is 2nd in the lineup. You know, after hitting the boots with people that have tried it, it may be the first release. I got to be honest, I really don't know. It's between the SMR and the Hooligan at the moment. The Hooligan is an Esteli Habano. 100% Nicaraguan. And it's spicy, man. I mean, that's what I get out of it. It is a spice bomb. And that's really, once I started hitting on those notes, I was like, man, I want another kick to the face, you know, as far as my palate goes. And I said, okay, let's do a little bit more of this. And that's what got us to the Hooligan. The Hooligan namesake. I mean, oddly enough, from my armpit to my waist on one side says Hooligan, and on the other armpit to the waist says Drifter. And these were way precursor to anything of, hey, someday I'm going to be an idiot and own a cigar company. So again, these namesakes have been with me for a really long time. And the Hooligan really goes back to mom and dad and all my family saying, you need a real job. When are you going to stop being so rambunctious? When are you going to stop being a little hooligan? You know, when you stop being a little, I'm like, Jesus, shut up. I'm being productive. You know, I'm getting shit done. I'm living here. So that's really where the Hooligan came from.
All right. So Kerr and I were talking about that name.
Yep.
Hooligan.
Yep. I know where we're going.
So I mean, you know,
so that's also in the works too. Man, I tell you what, lawyers are not cheap. Actually probably cost just as much as a first run of cigars could, to navigate some of the waters that we get into.
You can't smoke them.
I got someone that I can't fight, you know, that has knocked off part of my name as well, but
sure,
I can't fight them. You know, it is what it is, you know, because they're the monster out there. So I was thinking about the same thing with that name, you know, Hooligan, because now it's a monster of a monster that has that. That
so the convenient part about that is it's all perfect in your creative world, right? It makes sense in your creative world. It makes sense to you because you know the story behind it. You know, you've got the deets that go back for the last 20 years, you know.
Yeah.
But then you get a big dog in the industry and then you're like, fuck, like it's, you know, why couldn't you be called a restaurant or a fucking wine company? Or, you know, so why do we got to be in the same industry? So with that being said, it may be a behind the scenes name. Like I said, we haven't hit market yet. We're not pushing that yet to the market or any of these at the moment, but we might have to have a name change, but that's definitely what we're trying to look into to see what the navigation looks like. You know, there's comparisons and then there's, you know, it is and it isn't type deal, right? Like how's it going to look in court? So that's
you start reading those trademarks and then you realize everything that involves, because when Kevin knows this, when I came out with my brand, it was under El Viajante. And I got the letter from Viaje saying cease and desist. When I looked at the trademark, it was like every possible scenario of the word Via. It was like Viajante, Viajanta, you know, Viaje, you know.
Here you can no longer use your last name.
Traveling salesman, you know, he who travels. Like the journey, everything was covered underneath this trademark. And I was like, fucking, you know, you guys been around for a while and you do due diligence. That's smart, you know?
Yeah. So, and point blank, I mean, I absolutely knew that. I mean, after I had, let me rephrase this. I knew this after I had the bands printed, conveniently enough, right? Like when I've got hundreds of dollars in skin in the game on it, you know, we may very likely to have to pivot. But just, you know, as a soft, just kind of entry to the world, that's what it was. It probably won't be able to be marketed that way. But behind the scenes, that'll always be what it is. So we'll see, man, you know, to be determined still, but I definitely unfortunately am aware of the other dogs in the industry that,
luckily the band just has an H on there. So you just got to find another name with an H.
I know. So,
I know. That keep the bands. Yeah. Just now it's an H.
Yep.
You know,
but you know, the hooligan and spiciness, you know, when you're called a hooligan, it's kind of like a spicy kind of thing. So that's when I was like, really, I want that profile to be very spicy. And it's probably, that one's actually on its 7 rendition. So that's been set. So the point that you guys have, is the 7th version. So, and then the SA7, I think is what you mentioned that you're getting into next, Kevin.
Yeah.
San Andreas 7.
That's what I'm smoking now. Yeah.
Yep, that's also on the 7th Ren edition. Actually, the one that I'm smoking on right now is a Sumatra. Only 2 times to get to this point. So I don't know if I'm just getting a little better or I just got lucky. Probably lucky would be my take.
That was my question because I've had, I smoked all of them. Thank you for the
Yeah,
samples.
no
They're
problem.
fantastic and really, really gravitated more towards that unbanded cigar. That had just not only great spice to it, but it was well balanced. It had great
Sure.
flavor. It transitioned. It had a nuttiness to it, but it had some just real character to that cigar. And obviously, I got a lot of questions, and by the sounds of it, I'm not going to get a single answer. So that's fine. But
I can tell you what I can tell you. Put it that way.
I will tell you. I mean, from a third party perspective, and you can ask Kevin too, because I send Kevin my cigars. I want his honest opinion, and
Sure.
if it sucks, it sucks. If it's doesn't suck, it doesn't suck. And it was one that I was like, damn, I wish I had another one of those.
Wow. Well, great, man. I'm flattered to hear that. There's been a lot of work in it. It's the name conveniently enough for that one is we won't get into that one, but we got another namesake problem in that. Fuck, everybody's got the good fucking names, man. What is the deal?
Come on, man.
I tell you, it is mind numbing. I remember Abe DeBabno smoke in his mentor. God, I can't remember offhand what South Fontana, had owned like, I think he said like 500 names, like trademarks or something,
man.
for cigars. And then, like someone would, come out like, I own that.
Yeah,
I own that.
Well,
I own that. Yeah.
Now, after spending weeks on the trademark website, I realize we're in the wrong fucking business of cigars in a game of pennies versus thousands upon hundreds of thousands of dollars of namesakes, man. It's wild, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Wrong industry for sure.
Yeah. Luckily for me, I got a good guy, good mentor, Craig Vanderslice, aka Cigar Craig.
Yep.
He's the Trash Panda Cigars chief historian.
Cool.
So anything like, his mind is like a steel trap. If I just say, hey, has this been? He's like, yeah, this was done in 1987. It was done by, it's just like, yeah, you can't use that. Can't use that. Can't use that.
And being a new buck, bro, there's a lot for me to learn, right? I am not here today, and I am not here 5 years from now if I'm still in this business to say I know what the fuck I'm talking about. No, I'm figuring it out, man.
Yeah.
I'm transparent. There's good, there's bad, and there's ugly. And I've got all three in
when you want to. If you find an abandoned trademark, as soon as you try and take it on, all of a sudden it's like, oh my baby, I didn't mean to abandon that.
Yep. You don't even have one unit on sales, and yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I remember when Aganorsa got Mombacho, and they were able to prove that they sold one box of cigars in like 2020, and they're like, there we go. We were still selling the cigar, and I'm like, oh, you magnificent bastards.
Well, now that you synced up with that name, Mombacho, so the SMR, which I think is what Kerr, I think that's what you started with.
Mm-hmm.
So SMR is the acronym for Shit Monkey Rock. And Shit Monkey Rock, there's a Nika story connected to that. We took a trip to Nicaragua last year, just for obvious reasons, and I went with the whole team of dudes from the lounge that I'm a member at, Woodland Park, and Tooth and Bear Woodland Park, and we're all in the industry now, and we went there. We had to get boots on the ground, right? We had to go to where some of the best tobacco in the world was, and shake hands and show face with these people that, that are providing us with what our end results are. So we took a trip to Nicaragua, and man, we got a good buddy named Michael Wattman. He's a rep for a bunch of brands nonetheless, but he's a freelance broker, and he spends a lot of time in Nicaragua. And he said, you know what? Yeah, you guys should come down, when my wife and I are coming down, and it'd be a good time. And so we planned the trip I think there was 9 of us in total. So it was a really good time, man. And we got down there, and he's got a buddy that owns about 500 acres around the Mombacho volcano. And he's got a plantation, and he's got all this stuff, and he owns lakefront property in the Mombacho, if I'm not mistaken. And it's a mineral volcano. So like we did this big hike in the jungle, to get through to go swimming in this mineral lake. And by the time you got to that beach, man, it was black sand. The mineral water was so nice. But I guess before that, I can tell you where the SMR came from. So we're on this trip. They said, hey, do you guys want to see some Sandinista like training grounds where they used to train back in the day? And there's some petroglyph rocks kind of like, hidden in the place. And not many people know about them. They're estimated about 900 years old. And we're like, well, yeah, we had a few days just to be leisurely there. And we were in Granada at the time.
Of course, I've never seen this horror movie before.
Exactly.
Yeah, let's go trekking in the jungle to see a rock.
And as we're going to the jungle, exactly. You know what? And we were literally walking on a wall that was built by the Sandinistas where they were doing all their training camp stuff. And it was like, wow. I mean, I'm a history dude. I love learning about all that shit. And I was like, this is awesome. Literally a once in a lifetime kind of trip. And he's with us, navigating it from us. And he's like, yeah, I had a few of my workers come out here a few days ago and bushwhack through the jungle. I'm an outdoors guy, but this is the jungle. Like there's no, I mean, this is jungle. And, of course my wife's concerned because the threat level's at a 3. It's in the orange red area, on the US embassy, do not travel only as needed type deal. So my wife's sweating at home. Conveniently enough, we go in end of April, beginning of May, some of the hottest times in Nicaragua. Man, Arizona was hot, but you take that with 1,000% humidity on top of it. You couldn't cut the air.
In a tropical jungle. Yeah.
So needless to say, actually a few months before we went on that trip, I had a friend here and we got really sick. And we ended up coming down with RSV. So my wife and I were really struggling to get back on our feet, respiratory wise, going up our stairs to our bedroom. Very abnormal for us. Wow. And we took my buddies and I took this trip, and we hear Sandinistas, the jungle, the volcano, the mineral lake. And we're like, who the fuck isn't on board? So me being the outdoor guy, I'm like, yeah, I come prepared. I'm like the MacGyver, man. I always got every little bit of everything. And we're in the jungle and we're all smoking cigars, a once in a lifetime trip, walking through these areas that's been bushwhacked for us. And we keep going up. And we keep going. I'm like, gosh, damn, how much more up do we got to do? And keep in mind the RSV, I'm still like coming back from. I'm like, my breathing is very, and I'm like, okay, well, I've got some of that liquid IV hydration stuff with me, and I've got a gallon of water that I've already smashed about half of. And we finally start trekking, and we keep going up, and we keep going up, and we keep going up. And being an outdoors guy, and just being a very self-contained guy, knowing when there's a line in the sand, I know when I'm a liability and I know when I'm an asset, and I don't ever want to be a liability. And I knew that there was a potential that I would have to tell the group that I'm with. There was only one way up and one way down to go see this rock. And I knew that at some point, it's very likely I had to tell these guys, go on without me. I'll be here when you get back. And they're like, as the howler monkeys are howling through the jungle, and, the snakes and the spiders and we're literally walking on probably 8-9 inches of downed leaves in the jungle. That is literally like walking on silk going up a mountain.
Yeah.
So everything is very labored on this hike, including my respiratory problem. And I finally get to a point and I am pouring sweat. I mean, the bottom of my feet was sweat. I mean, Jesus, man, my hair follicles were sweating. And I finally sit down on this rock because my world is spinning. And I'm like, I know when I'm an asset and I know when I'm a liability. And I said, guys, I can't go any farther. I'm sorry. And they're like, oh, it's no big deal. The rock's right over here. And I'm like, thank God. So I sit down on this rock that I was gonna be my stoop, where they were gonna meet me at coming down from this petroglyph rock. And they're like, oh, it's right here. I'm like, thank God. And I'm sitting on this rock. And I actually am getting worse at this point. I'm done moving. I'm sitting on this rock. And I'm like, man, there's fucking ants all over here. And I'm getting encased in ants from my feet up. And I'm like, I'm getting really dizzy right now. I think I'm going to shit. And I think I'm going to vomit. And you guys are really, I don't know what to do first. And I don't know where to project it all. So I lay down on the jungle floor and I go, I tell these guys, I go, I don't think it's a good idea, but I need to lay down. And they're like, no, don't lay down. Don't lay down. You're in a jungle, man. Like, this is real that you're in a jungle. And I'm like, they're like, okay, he's laying down. So I'm laying down and I'm like, okay, slowing my breathing. I'm like, I've got 2 of the liquid IV hydration packs in my bag. And I was like, I just need to slam those with some water, get some sugar in me, get ramped back up. Again, being ate with all these ants and stuff like that. And finally, I'm starting to feel a little bit better about 5 minutes later. And I sit back up off the jungle floor while I'm still sitting on it. And I'm like, that. And I look at the rock that I was sitting on, and it was covered. It was encased in monkey shit. And I'm like, and I was like it was a lazy boy at one point. I'm like, and I'm all over that, like my backpack, my body. And I'm like, gross. And I was like, shit, you know, and you hear the monkeys in the background. And finally I get rejuvenated enough that we can keep continuing the hike to go to the mineral lake and all that stuff. And then we get to the mineral lake, and I get real rejuvenated, and we're on our way back, and I'm like, shit monkey rock, because I said something about shit monkey rock and just joking around. And then I was like, on the whole hike back to the truck, so I was like, shit monkey rock. I was like, I don't know if I could name it that. And I go, but acronyms, SMR. So that's where the SMR came from, shit monkey rock.
That's funny.
So a little more fun than the hooligan.
You had a big breakfast before you went.
Oh gosh, yes.
Cigars on the way.
Oh.
Well, the thing about
that was monkey shit you were sitting in, or
yeah. Well, you're right. Well, the thing was, the place that we were staying at, we were played at, I think it was called the Santa Ana there in Granada. It was a cool little place, man. And it came with a free breakfast, and it was like, okay, great. I mean, I don't know what it really worked out to. It was probably like 30 something bucks a night. You know, everybody's got a mini split in there, so the air conditioner could be turned on. That's really the only thing anybody really wanted. But we were like, okay, well, we better get a hold of the breakfast before we go to this place. We'd been going to a place called Kathy's, which was awesome, man. We went there a few times the whole time of our trip, and it was phenomenal. It was just down the road from our hotel, but we were gonna take up the hotel breakfast this time. And we got there, and there was a language barrier. I'm trying to use fucking Google Translate, and if it wasn't for Geraldine McCafferty in 9th and 10th grade doing my Spanish work, I would have never passed class. However, I would have been a little more, you know, set up for success when we went to Nicaragua, at least, you know, some broken Spanish. And we're just kind of shaking our heads like, breakfast? And she's like, yeah. She comes out, and it's literally two potato pancakes that are smaller than the size of your fist, a side of fruit, and gosh, I think there was that might have been it. And that was the fuel we had precursor to this rigorous hike. And, you know, and even then I was like, fuck, I really need to, you know, I got some Cliff Bars, and I was like, I'll probably need those on the hike. I should have ate them before we did the hike, but man, it was not a set up for success kind of moment, man. It was pretty brutal, but again, I would have done it 100 times over. But yeah, that's where the shit monkey rock came from, the SMR acronym. And you know, that was a lot funner because I got a lot of you know, a good group of dudes that I went there to experience that trip on, and we all get a kick out of it now. We've all got a connection to it, so that's the real special thing about it.
It's one of those trips afterwards, you know, you tell it, you know, then your friend's like, but did we die?
Exactly.
No.
Exactly. And they're like, no, but Gordon almost did.
Yeah, that's it. But did you die? No,
exactly.
You know, so stop being a pussy. Did we?
Right.
We didn't die, you know.
Right.
So
well, and then after that, we were in Granada, and then we were going to Esteli. We checked out Aganorsa. We went out to the Fuente Farms. It was actually pretty crazy. The timing that we were there, it was just kind of like a, let's put in the ground what we can put in before the rainy season comes in, because we know it's going to demolish everything. And they were actually still cleaning up some things out of the field. So they actually had a late harvest going on, but we got to check Fuente and stuff out when we went to Esteli, and it's pretty spectacular, man. But getting there, we were driving, I think it was a 3-hour ride from Granada to Esteli or something like that. Had rented the vehicle for us, and we were driving, and all of a sudden we pull up to a police or a military checkpoint, and they pull us over. You know, there's like seven gringos in a car mobbing through the you know, the back roads of Nicaragua. They're like, okay, pull over. And they said we crossed a white line in the road. However, none of us seen a white line anywhere in the road, let alone, I think, any lines in the road. But the difference about this stop is our buddy Mike was like, it's usually the police, but this one was military with like the backup of the police.
Where are you going? The only thing you can say is Sandinistas.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So, yeah.
And you can tell they were just scalping anybody they could, man. And it was obvious, you know, but you know, when in Rome, right, you just do what you got to do. So thankfully we just paid the $60 and got out of there. And that was that. But Yeah, man. Which, by the way, if anybody's ever looking for a nice guided trip to Nicaragua, Michael Wattman, if anybody ever wants that, I can hook him up with all this information, man. Whether you want chocolate, coffee, fruits and vegetables, or tobacco tours, I mean, he's the guy to do that. He spends quite a lot of time in Nicaragua, and he's a great wholesome dude.
Like radar on MASH. What do you
yeah.
need? What do you need?
Exactly.
I just need a day. Just need a day. I'll get that for you. I know. We got a lot of friends, Josh and Sin Coburn, that live down there. Butane. Yep. They can't get butane for the lighters. So yeah. If you want to smuggle anything to Nicaragua, that'll get us demonetized.
As big of a cigar country it is, try getting cigars into the country that you're not bringing on an airplane. Good fucking luck.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Wow, yeah. Really?
And they're like, well, they were exported from Esteli. We're like, well, now I'm trying to get them back in, right? It's like,
I'm just going to plant them. I'm bringing them home.
Right.
I'm bringing them back home. So,
right. Yeah. And Sin and Josh, they, what's those guys?
The Dissident cigars made out of Blackworks.
Right.
Yep.
But they have it's a group of brothers. A group of brothers that are over on Ometepe Island that are doing a big farm over there. They've been really good with growing some tobaccos over there. So I know my buddy Raul is in kind of cahoots with them, trying to get some of the Ometepe tobacco to bring into for his clients and stuff like that. So it's a cool world, man. It really is. I mean, and there's always snakes in the grass, as we know. It's just, when you find the good ones, they really stand out, and you really got to stick with them, because if you've got their back, they've got yours type deal. So, but there's few and far between, as we know that too. So,
yeah, when you find someone that doesn't just want your money,
right?
And that's like you said, there's so many people. Oh, well, what blend do you want? I have these 12. Pick one.
Right.
Well, I want something custom. No, these are the 12 you get.
Right.
15, 20, whatever you have to pick one of these. And
sure.
And it's it's not like I want to do that. I did see on your website that you do have there's like a little form interested in making your own cigars.
Yeah.
What is what is that all about?
Well, I mean, I'm just kind of the vehicle for that, really. Again, talking about small mom and pops kind of businesses. Raul Lanuza, the cigar factory that I'm going through in Esteli, he's very much that, like I am in all my business endeavors that I've dabbled in my life. I just said, look, man, he's done a lot for me, man. I mean, that hasn't had a monetary value to it. He's not asked for money. I've not had to give money for certain things, and I've met a lot of people in life being in the businesses that I'm in, and I have a pretty good people radar, if you will. I mean, I'm generally like, I'm a benefit of the doubt kind of guy. I usually give you too many chances. But as I've gotten older, I've realized you need to hone that shit in, because there's too much time to it just takes too much time out of life. So with everything that Raul's done for me, I just said, look, man, I want to be able to help you grow. I want us to grow together. So collectively, I try to field him as much business as I can. Again, a good cigar is a good cigar. So, my stuff is proprietary to me. Between him and I. So, what I've got on the table is for Drifter Cigar only. And if I can bring him some revenue too, I would love to do that. I know he's got big aspirations for the future. We're talking plantation talks. The factory that he's working out of now has land that he's putting money down on to acquire plantation land, to be able to grow his own tobacco and really have hands-on, from seed to stick, really. So I just want to be able to help as much as I can. So if you were to go to my website and fill out that information, I basically just alley-oop it to Raul and say, hey man, I'm just the liaison. And that's really all that is. Yeah.
All right.
Just to connect.
Cause I asked, I've got a buddy that reached out to me today. He was thinking about, maybe doing one or two things. I'm like, it's funny you say that, I just, was on a website. So I wanted to ask it tonight. Sure. And then I'm like, I'll definitely,
but always tell him Gordon from Drifter Cigar sent you.
Yeah. That's it. So, but yeah. So when he's ready, I'll have him reach out to you. I'll fill out that form on your site.
Be great, man.
So that'd be cool. I did want to ask you. I saw you posted a picture on Instagram with Steve Saka.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. How'd you meet Saka? What was that interaction? Like he's a great guy. I love him, but
talk about a fucking character, huh? Oh
yeah.
man, you know, so I've met quite a few people in the industry, you know, not on a first name basis by any means. I'm not tooting that horn, but have been able to be around some of the greats, you know, and kind of just hear them speak and how they talk about their business and what the, you know, the ups, the downs, the bullshit, you know, the good, bad, ugly. And Saka just shoots it straight, man. That is something I can appreciate that anybody can do. But from what I'm finding in this industry specifically, Tooth and Bear in Woodland Park, Colorado. Again, those are a group of my buddies there. It's a Woodland Park is about a 45 mile trip for me. But Tooth and Bear is the retail location, and the Herfing Way is the private members only lounge. And this was right before Rocky Mountain Cigar Fest. I think it was the day before. And they were just kind of making some stops around, and Lafferty had reached out to my buddy Jake and said, "Hey, we want to come check out the mountain cigar spot, and we'd love to stop by." So they stopped by, and conveniently enough, everybody was able there to sit down upstairs and overlook Pikes Peak Mountain and just kind of shoot the shit with them and get a lot of cool stories, man. Again, the good, the bad, the ugly of the business. And a great dude, man. You know, I can see how some people are like, "Oh, well, I don't know." Well, why? Because he fucking tells it how it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I don't like the truth sometimes either, right? Like, but you know, the truth is the truth. Any way you slice it. So it was great, man. He told us a lot of stories from his startup days of you know, just working for other companies and saying, "Well, what am I doing working for you?" You know, like I don't need all this. I can do my own shit. And it was great, man. He's a character and a half, to say the least. And it really cracks him up is that we were talking about all the band burners. We've got a lot of band burners at our lounge in Woodland Park, and you know, it's like it's like a rep's worst nightmare to have a band burner collective of guys, you know. And he said, you know, it just, you guys crack me up. You fucking smoke them down to the nubs, and you know, and now I got to wait longer to get paid, and you know, that whole kind of thing. So it was great, man. And yeah, I mean, that's really all that was. It wasn't, and it was just kind of a photo op thing too. So we got to pick his brain and bullshit with him, and got a lot of good advice from him too, man. So it was very influential, to say the least.
Yeah, he's a great guy, good friend. I love talking with Steve and picking his brain and just hearing the stories. Most of the time, it's just you start off with, "Hey, Steve, how's it going today?" And then you just sit back. You just
hold on.
Yeah.
Of all the interviews we've done with him and had him on, I always appreciate the fact that I always find myself coming out of that interview and learning something new.
Absolutely.
You know, every single time. Just mostly you learn a couple of things, but it's like he likes to talk, he likes to share, but you know, if you sit in and have a conversation with him, if you leave without learning something, then you've either been in business for a real long time and you really know your shit, or you're full of shit.
Yeah, I mean, that was the consensus of everybody that got to chop it up with him. They're like, "Wow." Like I didn't even know. And it's like, it wasn't a big ensemble there to sit there and talk cigars. It was just hey, it's a fucking Thursday and I'm in town, and whoever's there's there kind of thing, you know, a real pop-up kind of deal. So it was cool.
Oh yeah.
Spur of the moment.
Those are always the best.
Yeah.
All right. So man, we're I can't believe it's been over 2 hours already.
Wow.
This night has flown by. That's it. So we look forward to seeing so when do you think you know in 2025 here people are going to be able to, you know, go online? You know, what's your time frame looking like?
That's the hope. I mean, so last year it was quarter one. You know, as we got closer to the end of last year, now it's closer to quarter two. You know, and the politics of regular life, right? Like, so without my lawn care business, I don't have a cigar business. So I've got to put priorities down. And in the cigar industry, whether you got the cigars or the tobacco paid for, doesn't mean you're next in queue. You know what I mean? So like, and we need time for these things to rest, right? Like, I'm never taking anything from the bench just to mouth. It's got to acclimate, specifically even coming from here to Colorado. I mean, it's a big difference. I mean, we fight with moisture left and right here. So the hopes is at least by Q2 to get something out. But I guess in a devastating position, I would hope by the end of 2025. So
okay.
Colorado sucks. We've got that 56% retail tobacco tax, man, and it's getting uglier.
Didn't you guys just announce you're lowering that?
Did we?
Wasn't that the other day? Kerr, can you pull that up? Colorado announces lowering the tax, and I thought they were. Hope. Yeah, I could have sworn I read that the other day. Colorado was getting ready to vote to lower it drastically. I want to say it was by half or so.
Wow,
because
I mean that's game changing.
Yeah, I mean you guys are brutal. California, New York.
Yeah,
it's just
and we're supposed to hit 60. We were supposed to hit 63%, I think, by 2027. God. Like last year, that was the projected by 2027. I was like, holy shit, man. I mean, here's the thing, like you bring cigars into Colorado, right? Like we're talking about a mom and pop's operation here. I'm going to distribute them myself to just, for obvious reasons right out of the gate. I need, I've got a lot of skin in the game and I don't have a lot more skin to give other people to get me farther in the game type deal. And I've got a lot of downtime to hit the ground running with this stuff, but man, 56% tax on a $10,000 bill. That's not cheap money, man. I mean, that's,
As of July 1st, 2025, the excise tax rate for premium cigars in Colorado will be 20% of the manufacturer's list price or the MLP. This is a reduction from the previous 36%.
Weird. 36%. Yeah, because we were 56 last year. Strange. Huh.
Yeah, and I think they changed it because from like the MSRP or something versus.
Well, here's the reason. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Kevin, but you mentioned
go ahead.
56%, and it says here this bill does not affect the additional 20% tax imposed by the state constitution. So there's where you go from 36 to 56.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's probably going to still be 40%.
Yeah, not the place to launch a cigar company. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, the only your only solution there is to go with a like a bonded warehouse and just don't bring them into Colorado. Yep. You guys are close to Dion at Illusione. What is he in Nevada or Utah? I know he does a lot of distributing for brands as well. So sure. That might be. I don't know. That might be an option to save some of that money. But
well, I had my parents. They actually lived in Titusville until as of just really this last year. They retired there earlier on and spent about 15 years there and moved back. And I was actually thinking, maybe I'll use you as my drop shippers.
Yeah. We've got quite a few drop shippers here in Florida.
Sure.
So But
2025, nonetheless, you should see something. The real pushes by the end of Q2 at the earliest. Just with how things are looking. And
I think what's funny is in Colorado, the marijuana tax is 15%.
It's wild, man. So everybody's like, oh, well, I would have thought you would have gotten in the cannabis business. And I'm like, well, with all the red tape, and then now that I'm learning about the fucking cigar industry, I'm like, just copy and paste it. Now I can own a cannabis company too, if that was really the drive. But what you find out along the way can be shocking. Oddly enough, not shocking enough to keep me out of moving forward, but that's like you got to stick and move.
But I'm glad to see you taking your time, not rushing it, because we've all smoked those cigars. We've all heard the stories, it's of a cigar being rushed to market then they end up not being good.
Well, this is my first go. I don't want to shit the bed before I get to make it, so, and maybe the reason it's taken so long too is because it's just this guy here, but it could be a blessing and a curse, right? I feel like I need more boots, but at the same time, I'm like, well, more hands in the cookie jar is not always a positive thing, right? And in a game of pennies, there's not much left if you start doing that. So
That's it. I hear you, man. I'm in the same boat. You know, it's like, you know, when you got, you know, when it's your own money invested, Kerr is the same way.
Yeah.
You know, when it's your own money invested, you know, it's got, you know, slow is, you know, definitely the key sometimes.
Sure.
Are you going to be at yeah, are you going to be at PCA this year? I mean, not you know, debuting or anything,
No,
but just
no. To be honest, I thought about it, but quite honestly, it's not really my thing. I got to be honest, and I hate to sound like a turd. That's not what I mean. Is like I'm too good to go to this thing.
Oh yeah,
there's too much shit going on before I feel comfortable going. You know what I mean? I'm focused on so much of my own stuff right now, and if I went there in the consumer mindset, I would probably just be spinning out of control because I'd go goo goo gaga over a lot of shaking hands, and you know I'd probably get too many more fucking ideas that I don't have the time or money for to keep moving forward on.
I heard that. Yeah, that's that's it.
But yeah,
so,
not this year.
Right on. So, all right, Gordon. Thanks for coming on. Checking us out. You know, hanging out with us for a couple hours.
Yeah,
it's been a blast. It's been a great show. First show back of 2025.
Congratulations. Welcome
and
back.
We found someone who could possibly do our intro music, Kev.
Hey, there you go.
I've you know, for the other Puff and Ponder podcast.
Yeah.
So I just hired a girl to do our music and sing our intro. So
you don't want me singing.
I was not consulted over this, Kev.
Yeah, I will send you the first draft, and then we can go from there. Gordon, I had ChatGPT write us an intro song. So
how did it turn out?
You know, I don't know. I just hired her. I just hired her yesterday. So we'll see. I said, take liberty. She's a professional songwriter. So I'm like, take liberty with what Chat.
We could have had the Backstreet Boys doing our theme song.
Well, here's the better question. Is it the free Chat GPT or are you paying the $20 premium? Because it's gonna filter the results based on how much coin you're spending, you know.
I pay Chat GPT. So I use it so much. I gotta have the paid version.
What a scary, great tool. You know, it's just
it is because I was funny. It was a Saturday night. I forget what I was asking it. And Jessica was in the lounge, and I came out and I read her ChatGPT gave me, you know, first of all, it calls me by name now,
right?
Kevin, we're on a first name base, and it gave me positive affirmation, you know, and it was like, keep up the good work. You're gonna succeed. And I read this to Jessica, and I'm like, I think this is my new best friend.
Yeah.
You know, so
I forecast pizza rolls for lunch today. You know? Wow, she knows me.
You know, hey Jessica, why can't you be more like Chat?
Like ChatGPT?
Yeah,
Jessica.
Oh my God, I would never say that. Yeah, gosh, but yeah, cool. So
awesome, you guys. It's been an honor, man. I appreciate you breaking your 2025 cherry with Drifter Cigar Company, and it's been an honor talking to you guys, man. I watch a good chunk of your shows, and I have a good time doing it every time. So thank you guys. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Well, I don't know who's going to be our next month guest. I got to figure that out. So I'll let everybody know, but we'll be back next coming up Monday. Well, next Monday with another episode of the Puff and Ponder podcast. So make sure you check that out. Kerr, give us some final words of wisdom. Before you do that, make sure you're following Cigar Prop, Kevin from Cigar Prop, Stogie Road Cigars, Drifter Cigar Company. All the social media links for Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, are in the show notes down below, the podcast description, if you're listening to this in a week or two. And Kerr, leave us some parting thoughts.
I think we learned something really, really cool tonight. When you asked about Gordon's campfire story about, starting a cigar company, he says, well, he goes, I don't have that history of sitting on my grandpapa's lap and have smoking cigars or someone in the family. That's because Gordon now has become that grandpappy. He has now become that campfire song or that campfire moment. So remember, you may not have a history in cigars. It may also be in anything else, anything influential in anyone's life. You may not have a history of said event or maybe something you want to do, but you can always be that starting point that your generations can talk about for years past your demise. So I think that's fantastic. So be your own campfire story.
Sure. Yeah, my motto's always been, man, if you're not living, you're dying, right? And if you're not doing the things you love and you're not figuring things out and starting new passions, what are you really doing? Working,
that's it.
being
That's
ornery.
it. Yeah, I think
Cool.
Jerry Seinfeld said, I think he said, Beth, if you're not doing that, it's just all masturbation.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
So,
Cool.
all right, we'll see everybody
All right, guys.
next Monday. Hang out for a second, Gordon.
Cheers.
And